Order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees, the Superior McCaslin Interchange District Board of Directors, and the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors. Phyllis, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mayor Clint Olson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams.
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Rita Dozell.
Here.
Julia Gregoris.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magny.
Here.
The Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Hoy.
Okay, next is the approval of the agenda. We have changes to the agenda.
Yeah. Sorry. My system is not working at the moment. No worries, though. Everything's cool. You don't have to worry. I'd like to pull 7G off the consent agenda, and we can discuss it.
Okay.
I'd like to pull 7D.
Okay. Pull 7D and 7G. Anything else? Okay. Motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Trustee Gregoris, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay, next is the reports, questions, and issues. Who'd like to start? Trustee
I'll start.
Trustee Hansen.
First, I want to just again give out some appreciation to our staff. Over the weekend, just helping me get iLegislate up. Martin and especially Nadine reached out to me over the weekend to help me get that done. So I really appreciate it. Our staff is always willing to help out anytime, so they're greatly appreciated. I attended a Rocky Flats Stewardship Council meeting today, and we got our quarterly report, nothing new, but we did have an extensive conversation and a presentation by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife about the prescribed burn. And certainly doesn't look like it's working in our favor, and I'll just kind of go over the highlights and you guys can ask questions, and if I can answer them, I will. A lot of residents there, just from around the region, but there were some Superior residents. Michelle Parrish was there and spoke a bit. Harvey Nichols was there. Gail Biggs was there, and they voiced their opposition to the controlled burn. It looks like U.S. Fish and Wildlife is planning to do this controlled burn sometime between mid-March and mid-April. There's going to be an open house in March just ahead of the burn to discuss with residents what the plan is, how they're going to roll it out. They said it's not for sure, but they're leaning towards it. The smoke permit has been issued. The only decision left is an internal decision on whether they're going to move forward with it or not. There were some options that were put on the table, such as grazing options, mowing, other types of weed control, but this is by far the best option that they feel. An interesting point that came up was that in 2005 there was a comprehensive conservation plan drafted, and that was drafted by members of the Stewardship Council, residents, and local municipalities. And in that comprehensive conservation plan, it does say that controlled burns are permitted in this area. The Stewardship Council is going to review the comprehensive conservation plan moving forward and see if things like that could be changed. But they were pretty stern in what they want to do. So, any questions?
What was the response of Stewardship Council?
The Stewardship Council is unanimous in their opposition. And there's going to be a redraft of a letter. There was a letter that was sent out in October in opposition to it. A new one's going to be drafted and sent out to Mr. Perlmutter, Jared Paulus, again, just stating our opposition for it.
I would suggest we do likewise.
We've done that. We have several.
Another one?
Well,
And now in response to their insistence, they're going ahead?
We could do that.
There's, given that time frame, do you remember offhand when the MCC is going to Washington, Mr. Mayor?
Second to last week of March.
Too late.
The City of Boulder is planning a trip, I guess soon, it'd have to be soon, to Washington, D.C. to get some time with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to further discuss this, and they're encouraging other municipalities that are part of the Stewardship Council to go with them. So if there's an interest in having our town represented, they would like to have people go. That's it.
Say that last sentence over, if there's an interest.
If there's an interest in representation from the town of Superior to go with the city of Boulder to Washington, D.C., they didn't give a date or anything yet, but they're encouraging others to go, to sit and talk with U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
I encourage that.
I agree.
I'll check with Matt Applebaum. Okay. Okay, who's
And
next?
Can I just ask one quick question? So it's on their work plan, as I understand it, for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Yeah.
And is there any way, or have they discussed how they can actually get that off the work plan?
No, they didn't discuss that. I mean, when I asked them if it was a done deal, because the smoke permit has already been issued, what's the next steps? And they said it's just an internal discussion that they're going to have and whether they're going to do it or not. So it's not really, they're going to involve the public in this March meeting, but they're really not reaching out to have any additional public meetings to discuss, whether it's a good thing or not.
So who determines their work plan? Who sets that?
I would imagine they do, but
Yeah. It's the, what are they, Department of Agriculture, or the, I forget which department they are. I think they set their work plan themselves. I was going to say, and I find this particularly disturbing, in that over the years, regardless of what people think of the Department of Energy, they've always been somewhat responsive to public comment and stakeholder comment. It seems like Fish and Wildlife has turned a total deaf ear to that. We're getting 100% opposed to this, and they're ignoring that. I think that's troubling.
yeah. Well, he opened with their mission statement. It's really maybe a dozen words, and part of it was respect to the community. And he reiterated that many times, how they have nothing but respect for everybody and entertain all conversation and return calls and all that. But he was, in my opinion, he was far from respectful today.
Wow. Very disappointing.
Yeah, I agree.
Do they think the weeds are going to overtake the
Well,
community? Is that?
No, the issue is that it gets to a point where it's so overgrown that just some lightning can set up a fire, and then they really have a wildfire they can't control. Whereas if they do this controlled burn, they have complete control over how fast or slow it can burn and the area they want it to burn. They'll set up perimeters and all that kind of stuff. So that was their big concern, is that it's out of control, that something needs to be done. They wouldn't. The last one was 14 years. Was it 2000? Was the last one?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So about 14, 15 years ago, and they said they'd like to do these every 2 or 3 years.
But the last one didn't go well.
Right. And with our wind events?
Why don't they bring just a herd of goats and get them?
Really, that was one of the.
Let's just kill them off.
That's one of the options. Now, this is what's, there's lengthy
I'm serious,
discussion
I'm not
about
kidding.
this, is that it's not feasible, for one. That was the least preferable option. They said one of the reasons why is because there'd be a lot of community outcry about the animals eating potentially. Some animal rights groups would come forward and say, well, this is contaminated, and you've got a herd of goats. They're
It's
eating
a
this.
wildlife refuge, for crying
Okay,
out loud.
let's move on to other.
So
pretty
this was
points.
brought up, and just to finish that point, because that was discussed a lot. He would want to get reassurance from the Stewardship Council, if they entertain that option, that we wouldn't come back to them and say, well, you can't, when they go to euthanize animals, that there wouldn't be any backlash on that.
This sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit. Almost.
Or the Twilight Zone.
The Twilight
Something.
might be even more.
Okay. Who's next?
Is that all you had?
That was it, yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
I will go. I attended a Dr. Cog meeting in replace of Dozell. And, hey, I like to switch it up, It's Brita, sometimes it's Dozell,
We
make it
don't want them
interesting.
too comfortable with just
Yeah.
one person.
All right, Williams.
Okay, former Planning Commissioner Dozell, Trustee Dozell. So it was a very important meeting, and we were tasked on a very important vote that included two of our projects for Superior, which are trail and bike and pedestrian trails. And those are, one of them completes a good, nice loop between Louisville and Superior. It's Coal Creek Trail from the town center, or the coming town center, through to the Superior Park and Ride, and then from the Park and Ride to the Davidson Mesa underpass. And so those were really important to us. They were important to Louisville as well. And so there were many alternatives that were presented that night, and one of which was definitely never going to fund the projects. So in spirit of collaboration, the best one for the entire region ended up, thankfully, funding these two projects for us, and including our Superior Park and Ride, Call and Ride, sorry. That will be reinstituted sometime beginning of next year, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Late this year or early next year, right.
So, so the vote went great, and but I made one comment that was kind of a deja vu. But 4.5 years ago, I was still on the DRCOG board as the main representative, and we had the exact same scenario with the TIP process, where we had all these alternatives in front of us. And now we spent 4.5 years trying to figure out TIP policy in order to prevent what I would call a political game, in order to get, what each municipality was trying to get, their projects. So again, the TIP policy was never followed. Well, it was marginally followed. So no progress in that terms. And you guys just in December, I believe, passed some TIP policy that was to prevent a political game.
Right. But the great thing about it is, and thank you for being there to vote, is that we have those two projects, which were both over $600,000 of funding that will come from the DRCOG federal funds. So that's a very good thing for us. And then we really will make our connection, our trail connection, from the Coal Creek Trail that comes along Coal Creek itself into the Superior Town Center area and over to the BRT site, and then up toward Boulder, and then into Boulder. So we're going to have a great bicycle trail that will bring traffic into the town center as well as into the rest of Superior, and so that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Now, we will come up with some funds for that. 20% will be our share of the funds, but we should be able to come up with that as long as the nearly $1.3 million is being funded to us through this Transportation Improvement Project funding. So it's a very good thing. It's we've never had that much funding provided through DRCOG.
Never. Not as long as I've known.
Yeah.
Just about the call and ride, didn't we discuss this last meeting, didn't we think it was going to be in place by the end of summer?
Not
No.
that soon.
October.
October at the best, or beginning of next year.
Okay.
Right.
And as I understand, with the Superior Call and Ride that is going to happen, we are actually funding it, and then we're being reimbursed. Is that correct?
We are funding a portion of it. I mean, we have money in the budget, but there's also DRCOG money as well.
And so is it run by RTD?
No, they contract with VIA out of Boulder
Okay. So
And
they're
that-
providing a driver
and vehicle.
and the vehicle. What are we providing?
Well, we're helping with the
Other
cost
than
of
money.
those two items.
Okay, so who's running it, and how is it being run?
RTD runs it through a contract with VIA.
Okay. Do we have any say in how it is run? Staff,
We
I
have
mean.
say, but I mean, ultimately, RTD is going to make the decision on service level, frequency of pickups, drop-offs, that kind of thing.
How is that any different than what VIA does now? Because VIA I know people who use VIA in the town of Superior now.
Well, this is for the population at
Yeah.
large. I'm not sure about these.
Isn't BF4 impaired in some manner?
Could be special.
I don't think so. I think it's
Special
just
transit.
senior citizens. That's who uses it, senior citizens.
Not just that.
Further updates? Any other updates?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have one other update here. I attended a historical commission meeting, and I just wanted to relay that the entire commission was very happy to hear about our new appointee, and I asked beforehand how they felt, and they recommend the new appointee. So that is very important, and they were really happy that we, as a board, asked for their advice on that. So just wanted to relay that, so throw it away.
Okay. Trustee Gregorius?
Just one follow-up item. So 2 weeks ago, I brought up my big concern about the trash bins and the wind and the recycling bins and what happens up in Rock Creek, which was a disaster the previous week. So I had a conversation with Jim Payne in the Rock Creek HOA, and they actually heard our concerns, and I think they're going to take it seriously and collaborate with the town and hopefully with the board as well to come up with some solutions. And the easier ones, the low-hanging fruit would be even if we know the weather on, usually on Sunday, if it's going to be windy on Monday, just to communicate somehow throughout the town and say, just so you know, tomorrow's going to be really windy, 40, 50 mile per hour gusts. You may want to take some extra precautions in the way you position your bins. And another simple thing is that you can just turn them around. Usually we have them facing, the street, and the wind blows and it goes open and then it flies. If you turn them around, actually, that it's a very simple thing that may keep our community.
Hinges into the wind. That's the rule.
Basically, yeah. So that we can do. There are a couple of things that doesn't cost any money. Maybe there's communication that we can do, and they're going to come up with some other recommendations for us. But I'm pleased to see. Today was a great day. No wind, no trash. But we know it's going to happen again. So if they reach out to the town, hopefully you guys can collaborate. Okay.
Along the Rocky Flats line, Rocky Mountain Peace and Justice Center, along with, I guess, some other advocates for a no-burn, are meeting on Thursday with the local head of Fish and Wildlife. I got an invitation to be a resident observer, and I intend to go, so I'm sure they'll take as many resident observers as they can. The meeting's at 4 to 6 up in Boulder. So if anybody wants the information, I'll pass it along. The Dr. Cog thing is huge. Thank you for staff, Deb, Rita, Clint, everybody. That is really a huge get for this town. I talked to Matt already, but just because I know some residents involved in this issue are watching, there's concern along 76th Street from those Sagamore homeowners whose bedroom windows face 76, the trucks overnight there with the engines running. So you've got the fumes, the vibrations, the noise, et cetera, especially like in summer when the windows are open in those homes. So Matt's already agreed to extend those no parking signs that he put up, that the town put up around Guardian Storage, et cetera, on the Marshall intersect, further to protect those Sagamore homes. So if you get that question from anybody, that's taken care of. And tomorrow, Chris and I have our second meeting on phase 2 of the survey analysis. And do we have a new ProStack chairman, and have they been invited?
No, the ProStack chair and vice chair have not been voted on.
Selected yet?
That's right.
Okay. But the intent is to include that representative of ProStack as soon as that representative is announced in that meeting. So this is only our second meeting. We had a lot of conflicts getting to it, so we're doing that all. That's all.
Okay. Trustee Dizelle?
Yes, I met with the Boulder County Commissioner Lise Jones today, and we talked some more about our involvement and with the Dr. Cog, because Elise Jones is the vice chair, and she'll become the chair of the Dr. Cog next year. She's a very good proponent of Superior, and we talked about some of the things that we want to do, or, some of interest, joint interest between Boulder County and Superior. Also, Sandy and I met with town staff to discuss some more of the wastewater sharing and the presentation that was made at our last meeting, and we got great detail from that, so we appreciate that as well. And then we also met with residents and representatives of the Ridge to talk about some of their issues they had with the connection with their community and to the rest of Superior. Thank you.
Trustee Sorelli?
Nothing.
Okay. I'll do my update. On last week, I did a ribbon cutting with the Chamber of Commerce at Brain Balance. Went very well. Also met at Whole Foods for distributing eco passes with US 36 Commuting Solutions. We had several businesses in the Superior Marketplace sign up to get free eco passes. I think about 300 eco passes were distributed to employees in the marketplace. It's great to see that people are embracing the transit options there. Had a meeting with HOA President Steve Smith and some representatives from Waste Connections to talk about trash, recycling, composting, and the purpose of that was just really to get me up to speed with kind of how trash and recycling works in our community. Had a good meeting with Cub Scouts at the Cook residence to talk about citizenship with the Scouts. Had a meeting with mayors of Louisville, Lafayette, Longmont, Erie, and Boulder. That's a meeting about quarterly organized by Mayor Applebaum of Boulder, just an informal meeting of mayors to talk about town issues. Had a tour at Josephine Commons, which is Boulder County Housing Authority's senior housing complex. Mayor Pro Tem Williams joined me for that. The purpose of that meeting or tour was just to learn about what Boulder County Housing Authority is doing in other communities around. We invited them to come to a future board meeting and give a presentation on what the County Housing and Human Services Department is doing specific to Superior residents. It's been a while since they've been in to talk about what they're doing in our community, so I thought that'd be a good refresher. And that's it. Town Manager?
Thank you. No, town has no events planned over the next 2 weeks. The fire district tours that the fire district's offered up for the board, we've heard back from 2 board members. If Shannon doesn't receive any other requests or interests, we'll go ahead and just schedule for the 2 that we have. Want to remind residents that on Wednesday, the Southwest Loop at the interchange is planned on being closed so that they can start to build the RTD underpass. This will have the biggest impact for traffic on southbound McCaslin will be impacted the most, but it will have some impact for northbound traffic making that left because the turn lane is going to be shortened. So Thursday morning rush hour, Alex is going to be out monitoring that night, and we'll keep an eye on it. We're trying to work the timing so it works out best, so it has the least, but it's going to be impacted. There's just no way around it. So.
How long will that phase, sorry, how long will that phase last?
Probably till the end of the year at least. Well, you've seen how long it's taken them to construct the other one, so.
But that one seems particularly painful.
Yeah, it is, no doubt. So.
Matt, real quick question on just all the construction there and the disruption to some of the local businesses. I've spoken to a couple of the businesses, and they've shown me how the business has declined. Are we reaching out to the businesses? And
Alex has met with them. He continues to reach out to them, provide them information, and work with them best we can to make it as least impactful as possible.
yeah, I'm just wondering if Katie Press or anyone else has any idea on how we can, if there's any way we can assist these businesses while this goes on. I have no idea how, but some way, because they are being impacted, and it's the types of businesses that once they lose the client that goes somewhere else of the same type of business, it's going to be hard to get those clients back.
Town-wide, we've seen we haven't seen the increases in sales tax revenue that we usually do. on an annual basis. So, but we'll continue to meet with businesses and brainstorm, try to come up with ideas that will help them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We certainly can use e-blast
Yeah.
to remind our residents of the impact of not shopping here.
Let's see, just a couple other items. Paul's continue to work on debt refunding for the debt on S&D 1, SMID, and our open space debt. This, if we're able to lock in rates where we think we'll be able to, should have significant savings to the town for those debts. And then the last thing was Tommy Frickin, who's in our Parks Department, was nominated for the Boulder County Youth Corps Sponsor of the Year award. So that was it.
Okay. Town Attorney?
I just had a quick correction to make on the memo I did on the agenda, excuse me. I stated that Sushi Yoshi had a violation in the past year. I was incorrect. It was in 2013, so I apologize for the error, but I just wanted to clear it up for you. So it was longer than a year ago, so that was my mistake.
Thank you. Town Clerk? Okay, thank you. Okay, next is public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items. Anyone from the public wish to comment? If you'd come up and state your name and address for the record, and limit comments to 5 minutes, would be great.
I am Bob McCool, 312 West Coal Creek Drive. Item number 12 is not shown as a public hearing, so I don't know if public comment is going to be taken on it at that time, or whether it needs to be done now. Can you let me know? Either way is fine.
Is there a preference?
Typically, if it's an agenda item, you wait for comment during that agenda item, but you're correct,
That's
it's
cool. Yeah,
not set as a public
so I
hearing.
wanted
so
to make
it's-
sure I'd be able to comment during
It's
that.
up to the board.
So-
We'd be fine, I'd be fine taking comments now if you
Either way.
don't want
Yeah,
to,
that's
it
fine.
might be, an hour or two later, so
Sneak out of it.
welcome to
Thank you.
answer comments.
So two comments. First, as being on the planning commission, while that project was kind of coming through the town, I voted against it repeatedly because I didn't feel the product even came close to matching original town. And I do want to say that as we think about planning going forward, I want to beg you to go look at that model as you're driving through original town first, and you get a visual of that model coming up the street, what we've done. That house is at least 2.5 times the size of any house in original town, and you look at it, I'm looking at that, that's one house. And so it's done. There's nothing we can do about it. I tried really hard. I knew that product wouldn't fit there. It's going to look horrendous. I still feel that way. And looking at this, the mass of that house, as we look at other developments that come bordering original town, which could be infill, be this, and we now got 6 homes coming in over on Maple. We have the Old Rogers Farm development. Please think about what you're doing and what's bordering this neighborhood that has homes that are, the larger homes are 1,300, 1,400, 1,500 square feet without garages, and so, or they have a single car garage. It just please go, drive up there, take a look at it, and you'll see what I mean. It's massive. It's crazy. The other comment is related to the streetscape. Going through the planning commission, I haven't been watching what happened with this development as the board approved it, but the idea that our streetscape is still not, it's going to jog to the, and it's not going to follow. When we talked about this in the planning commission, I understood it was going to go straight up the road, and it would be a nice, clean, straight shot west. They're doing detached sidewalks, coming off of attached sidewalks, which seems like it's going to make you deviate farther into the, and do that kind of turn in the road. So kind of against that, we'd really like to see that just be a continued streetscape, just like we have now. And parking, I can't tell from the plans what the parking looks like. If it's just standard on-street parking, the way it's designed on Coal Creek currently, that would be great. If we're talking, diagonal in parking, I'm a little bit more concerned. And actually, it'd be nice to have, if you're going to start changing how that's all going to look up there, it'd really be nice to have a public hearing that would kind of draw people from the neighborhood in and maybe talk about what changes you're making. It looks like there was a meeting in 2013, but now that it's actually starting to happen and you're starting to make changes, it would be nice to have some input. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Additional public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations. Item number 6 is Town Center update.
Thank you, Mayor. The board has requested a monthly update with regard to the progress and activities of the town center. Tonight, Luke Taylor with Boulder Valley Ice and the Ice Ranch facility is here, as well as Larry Hirschfield with RC Superior, to give you that update, take any questions you might have. I want to thank both of them for being available tonight.
Luke Taylor, Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports. Thank you for having me again here this month. I'm happy to announce that we will be putting foundations in starting by Thursday. So we have crossed a lot of bridges and crossed a lot of things off. As of today, we were just waiting on a kind of a final agreement between our group and Ranch Capital to allow us to start that process. And we've signed it, and Ranch believes that it will be signed tomorrow. They have to get their investor to do that. Once that part is there, I can give our contractors a notice to proceed, and they will be out there within 1 to 2 days. So Thursday is the day that we'll be there. So kind of a quick presentation this time.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've been waiting for this.
I know, it's been as I was
Good to
talking
hear.
to Trustee Williams on the lobby there, it's been about 4 years that I've been working on this, so it's been a long time, and you guys have been there right with us, so that's wonderful. Thank you for all your support, for all these meetings and all these years. So look forward to it.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay.
Can I ask Larry a question?
Sure.
Larry Hirschfield, RC Superior. Yeah, I think as Luke said, we've been working nonstop for, it seems like forever, to try and get this financing done and get the project started. And as Luke said, we reached agreement today whereby we are comfortable enough that the closings will both occur in the next few weeks and make sense to get started. And so tomorrow, I hope to have our partner sign the agreement. I hope that'll happen tomorrow morning, and then that'll happen. So that's the last piece of getting it started right now, and then hopefully the rest of the deals will all close in a couple of weeks, and we'll be on our way finally. So,
How certain are you that the signatures can be?
We definitely have agreement on all the terms, so I'm highly confident.
Pretty certain.
I would be pretty embarrassed if I have a problem tomorrow, so.
Just want it on the public record, that's all.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Once they start with the foundation and everything else, how long until you start putting in roads and other public utilities and all that?
Well, look, we are starting in anticipation of closing on the bond sale in early to mid-February, I think. That's the most important, from our perspective, piece to really be done, if you will, because the roads lag behind in terms of schedule, in terms of necessity. But from our perspective, we have been pretty adamant that we don't want to start the project until we know the bank financing is going to be to allow us to actually close on the transfer to BVI of the land, and that the financing is there to build the facility. Because that's really the predecessor to selling the bonds, and the whole thing sort of started because we kind of built the project around this being the kind of lead user. And so based on where we are with Luke and his bank and his investor, we think all the pieces are in place for the bank to close the deal. I mean, the delays have been mostly around the financing, and the bank, as you would expect the bank to be, is very, very particular, and it's taken a lot longer than we hoped to get the bank done, but we believe the bank is done now. So we still have to get the deal closed in a couple of weeks, but based on our level of confidence that will in fact close, we think it makes sense to start right now.
Could you remind us about this bond issuance? How much is it for, and is it being floated right now?
So
Tell us about
so the offering memorandum is printed, if you will, and the D.A. Davison is talking to potential investors now. It's hard to say precisely how much will be issued because it depends on where they price based on rates, but order of magnitude, it could be as much as mid-teens, let's say, of total proceeds. That will not all be released or usable by us, because part of those proceeds will be escrowed pending the close of the medical office building, for example. So if the medical office building doesn't close, those proceeds ultimately return to the buyers. But, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but a significant portion of the proceeds of these bonds relate to this BVI facility, so those will be releasable to us. So anyway, so that's in terms of and I could get the figures, but there's a holdback of $5 or $6 or $7 million related to both the MOB and a couple of parcels the town's selling closing, because the revenues from those other three facilities also support the bonds.
Okay, thank you very much for the
My
update.
pleasure, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Cornerstone discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Impact Sports Management and Cornerstone Orthopedics have partnered with Elevate Management to develop the interior space plan at the Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports Facility. These firms presented to the board at the December 8, 2014 meeting. Since then, they've been working with my staff on kind of revising and refining their proposal, which they will present to you tonight. They've attached additional information. They have a PowerPoint presentation for you to consider. Staff also did some provided information in the cover memo as far as just an estimate of construction costs for a facility if the town wanted to build our own, for instance, which are included in the cover memo for you. We also included rates that other cities are charging for the rec memberships that have a recreation center, just to give you an idea of what it might cost if the town were to decide to build its own facility and we wanted to charge a rate, or if we wanted to charge a rate as we potentially partner with this group on a facility. With that, I'll turn it over to your group and do a presentation.
Thank you, Manager Maggie. Mr. Mayor and members of the board, and special thanks to Martin and Paul and Patrick for their help in the last month in preparing what I want to present to you tonight. It's an update.
Excuse me,
Sorry.
do you mind stating your name?
I apologize. Andre Blom from Elevate and
Thank you.
Impact Sports Medicine. So tonight is basically a consolidated update and review of some of the questions that was posed during the last meeting. And like I said, I really want to thank Martin and Paul for the work that they put in this, and compliment them on that. They're indeed very, very thorough. So in looking at the feedback from the conceptual review, the town has a desire for a conceptual exploration of the indoor recreational space as envisioned and as the surveys had indicated. And an opportunity exists for the establishment of a low-risk, cost-effective solution whereby Impact Sports Medicine would develop and manage such a recreational space on behalf of the town of Superior. So the objectives at the end of the day was to create that low-cost entry point, and to create active integration of existing and new community health partners. And I'll speak to that in a little bit. It's a change in your normal delivery platform from just a rec center to more of a health and wellness concept. So I really want to touch on that a little bit relative to the 5 and 10-year scope that we see with the opportunity. And then to establish the footprint for the town of Superior and its residents within the new town center project, which, congratulations, I guess is in order, right? That's good. So a key component to this is what Impact Sports Medicine will bring in terms of sports and program development. The key components are listed here, and it's also listed in the memo that was attached for your review. It includes program management, scheduling and integration with Impact Sports performance, staffing management and oversight, daily facility management, human resources management, and financial management and oversight of the said facility. So we have gone back and addressed a lot of the questions that were posed to us at the last meeting, and then with especially Paul and Martin's feedback, have tried to come to a point where Patrick had a lot of information relative to what the town had already done in terms of this exploration, and to make sure that we're kind of comparing apples to apples, we're trying to look at it. In looking at the first page of the memo, item number 6B, there are 3 estimated construction and operating cost examples given. And I think, Patrick, number 1 was not ours. It was just what you guys have done in the past, right, Martin? So in that, it gives a 14,000 square foot facility compared to a 25,000 square foot facility compared to a 60,000 square foot facility. The 14,000 square foot facility, when I reviewed this, is really what we would like to talk about, because the other 2 has a pool in it, which, as we mentioned last time, is a significant expenditure and it's a significant add-on. So it's really a different scope, but I think it provides a lot of relativity for the trustees to review. So what we did in order to address the financial concerns that was raised, or the financial consolidation that was requested, was that we basically looked at constructing or giving 2 proposals back to the town for consideration. The first is to build a double-story 14,000 square foot facility at parcel number A, as listed over here. And the second would be to build a 10,000 integrated facility that includes parcel A and B with an integration and the locker rooms as it's designated there between A and B. That's the scope of the physical facilities as it relates to the project itself. It'll be set up as a health and wellness center from that standpoint. The initial design obviously has to be explored. And as I had highlighted in the second page of the memo that was distributed, one of the key ingredients that we really want to go after is embedded in technology and incorporating health and wellness, or health as a whole, in the process. We aim to provide an extensive range of life fitness or like equipment, cardiovascular equipment, weight training equipment, supportive technology, including high definition television, closed circuit monitors, which we use in training and rehabilitation these days quite a lot. And then also to integrate that into group and fitness training, which will be provided depending on the layout and the construct of the facility. There will be dedicated spaces for recurring group classes, including, like, for example, yoga and spinning classes. We will be presenting monthly educational seminars that will be free and open to the public on topics such as safety and sport, concussion management, fall prevention in the elderly, and healthy nutritional options. And they will have locker room, shower, and changing facilities available to them. In addition to these standard amenities, I will touch on some discretionary options, but inherently, the first proposal looks like this. We propose a 10-year commitment with an option of revenue sharing, which I'll touch on in a moment, that starts in year 4. Impact Sports Medicine designs and develops the 14,000 square foot facility. And one thing I picked up in this is my second meeting here is I enjoy the detail with which you approach, and explore opportunity. So I think it'll be fun developing it with whoever the town decides to help and facilitate oversight in this. I would like the town to have great pride in what ultimately happens here. And there's an initial design fee of $35,000 attached to that. Impact Sports Medicine then supplies the initial project oversight, instruction management, on-site staffing, physical management, and then program initiation at a cost of $350,000 a year. Partnership Proposal 2 basically mirrors that of Partnership Proposal 1, except that we've scaled it down to 10,000 square feet, and it takes the project cost down, or the annual layout down, to $275,000 a year. So those are the two options that we've settled on. What residents can expect in there is access to our cardiovascular equipment and weight functional training equipment as in any modernized health club environment that you would find. There'd be unfettered access for town residents, and I'd like to talk about that in a second. They'd have access to our locker room facilities. They'd have access, these are general hours, 5 a.m. To 11 p.m. It's not going to be a 24-hour fitness. We're not going to plan on staffing it all day long. Obviously, they'll have access to the free monthly educational seminars. They'll have limited access to turf and basketball, And unless Luke changes his mind tonight, they will not have access to the ice from that standpoint. But the whole concept is to incorporate the turf and basketball utilization on an as-needed basis based on demand. This is something that starts from scratch, and we anticipate that it will grow. Ryland and I were talking about, for example, 3-on-3 basketball leagues that are run and the complementary hours that it can be open, and this facility provides an ideal situation for the town to expand on those kind of initiatives. Facility will be branded and staffed as Town of Superior, recreational name, or however you choose to name it. And all of the above is free to residents as part of the annual fee. As we know, though, nothing's free in life. So in addition to that, the discretionary program rates that we included are as follows. It's broken down. These are not fixed pricing components, but it's in line with what you would have here, and we feel around the area. Personal training options, seasonal or group-specific training, weight management classes or programs, seasonal programs like injury prevention, preparing for skiing, those kind of components. And these are the associated price points with each of those packages and components. Impact has been running this for the last 10 years out of Broomfield, and very, very successfully. I wanted to touch on this because I think it's inherently important for the town as it considers obviously looking at some big numbers in terms of 60,000 square feet facility for a pool at a cost of $15 million. The reason that I anticipated this would be a good opportunity is because I fully anticipate that looking at the growth of the town, this is not the end point for the town. This is a transitional point. This is to address a question that's come up through surveys and has been batted around for a long period of time. If the town is going to move forward and invest $15 million in a 60,000 square foot facility, it would be nice to answer some questions along the way. Like, what is the adaptation and penetration value? What does health and wellness really mean? What does it look like 5 to 10 years from now? And in addition to that, be able to learn what the tolerance level of residents are for these said activities. Is it a tax? Is it a monthly membership fee? We've seen all kinds of models being thrown around. At the advice of Martin and his team and Paul, I've kind of tabled that as more of a budget discussion that the Budget and Finance Committee can kind of take up. But typically, it's funded. We've seen it funded everywhere from a monthly fee added to the tax, the homeowners and recreational fee, or memberships as such. We anticipate that if there's a 15 to 18% membership penetration at modest levels in terms of membership alone, that financially it would yield between $200,000 to $400,000 of net income by the third year of operation of discretionary income. Now, if the town wants to do that to offset what it's investing on an annualized basis, we really want to put that in your court and let you decide on that. We heard from Martin that in order to scale down the price, there was also some questions around risk mitigation. We feel that at the lower price points, Impact Sports Medicine is willing to take on board the risk from that component, but also demonstrate and do due process as far as showing that there is actually a revenue generation option that the town can then decide on how it wants to manage or incorporate. The town could decide not to do it, but the tiered options that we've seen is $20 a month for single use, $40 a month for unlimited family member. I think it compares really well to what's around town. Now, again, some of these facilities have pools, so I don't want to speak to that. It's not really apples to apples. I really want to stay with like comparisons. A component that shouldn't be lost on it is if you build a 14,000 facility and that's the only thing there is, that's one thing. If you build a 14,000 square foot facility and it integrates on an as needed basis with an additional 26,000 square feet, to allow for growth and program development, that's something quite different. So I think that should be taken into consideration. So, in closing, this is really an idea. The genesis started with Dr. Sheen. He was a Superior resident for a long period of time, and I've known Dr. Sheen for quite a long time. I think we were grappling. I met with another group this afternoon, and we're all grappling with the rising cost of health. I'll just put it that way in the medical field. If there's a trustee whose monthly medical premium has gone down from 5 to 10 years ago, you can raise your hand. If your deductible is now less than it was then, you can raise your hand. Our health system is being designed to shift responsibility and to shift costs on the consumer. That is categorically the truth. And all the indications are that that will only grow. I think part of responding to the town residents is speaking to how seriously the town takes health and wellness as a whole. And I know this is Colorado, everybody is supposed to take it serious right here, right? But I think it is similar to what we saw, for example, in concussions in youth sports, something that was a little bit of a brush fire, no pun intended on the previous conversation, but it got out of control, right? 3 years, 4 years later, and now the NFL has a big, big problem on their hands. But I think health and wellness and our vision for health and wellness as it's viewed by the public and what the public is willing to invest themselves and what they're going to have to invest in is a question that increasingly different members of society is going to have to answer. Not all towns have to answer that, but we feel this is a great complementary opportunity where, 1 + 1 makes 3, like I said last time. So,
Just a quick
Question? Yeah, Trustee Guerrero.
Why do you need a decision by the end of next month?
Dr. Sheen, why do we need a decision by the end of next month?
Well, we've bantered around that a little bit in terms, Joe Sheen, Forest Orthopedics, and we were trying to set up, well, first of all, the delay with the Spirit Stung Center moving forward has been sort of a blessing in disguise because this kind of project kind of came on a little bit later. It was almost an afterthought after, hey, why don't we do this and why don't we? And the opportunity to bring Andre on board and create a program has kind of evolved just really the past 3 to 6 months, although Martin and I have talked about this ever since last summer. And as we got into the thick of things, in the fact that the swim school isn't coming and that space became available, it became obvious that it would be a very workable deal. And that's when we started working with Luke on the possibility of putting this and taking a land lease down on his space. But in conjunction with that, the ability to build together with the current ICE and impact facility and capture the economies of scale that go along with that and the price savings that go along with that, I queried our general contractor, who felt like, if we could at least get a decision and get things rolling by early spring, then we can kind of capture those economies of scale. And that's kind of why we wanted to move forward on that. Now, it's not to say that we can't add this on later, it's just that the cost would be a little bit different. We'd have to rework some numbers.
Okay, additional questions?
I'm kind of curious, Matt, as a town manager, how do you feel about this proposal?
I think it's a good proposal. The question is, we've got the survey results. We know what residents are thinking as far as those that responded to the survey. This is something that would be open and available to residents by the end of the year or beginning of next year. So if the board's not sure as far as indoor community space, what you want to do, or if you're going to have a plan in place in the next 5 years or out as far as providing indoor community space to residents, then I would say we move forward with this proposal. If the board thinks that by the end of the year you'll have a plan in place and something that can start to be implemented by next year or thereafter, then we might want to take some time to consider this, and this might be something that's incorporated in that plan or not. But it all depends on what your thoughts are as far as timeline and vision as far as indoor community space.
Maybe it would be useful to have a little quick summary from each board member as to kind of how you're initially reacting to this. Yes. Trustee Pennington?
I don't have anywhere near the data I need to make a decision on this. And we can throw around numbers like $100 a year, but that means 3,500 households if we're talking about $100 per household to make your $350,000 a year. We only have 4,600 households in this town, many of which already belong elsewhere, right? They belong to Lakeshore, they belong to Louisville Rec, they belong to the smaller entities that are popping up here and there. So we're going to have to cannibalize. So I'm going to have to see a lot more numbers. And until I have any confidence that we can attract that participation, which I am reluctant to say we can, I can't move forward. So I don't see the end of February, which is 2 meetings away, having that data that I need to make a decision.
That's why I brought up the question about the end of February. To answer your question, I don't think the board will come up with something as an alternative to this by the end of this year. That's not realistic, I don't think. I mean, we can envision things and maybe talk about 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the... So from that perspective, this becomes more attractive in the short term to provide our citizens with something that's, you know, state of the art, something that they would enjoy, and so. But we have to look at the numbers as well, but I'm generally in favor.
Okay.
I don't know if I can make a decision by the end of next month, though.
Right. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Williams?
So I think that we need to be very sure that we should be offering a rec center of some sort, as this is, before we decide, you know, on the end of February. And I'm not sure that's enough time to parse that entire survey and get exactly what is needed in a month. I don't know how you, the two of you, feel, because it's
not enough time.
Completely on your shoulders at this moment with that information. So that, for me, would be crucial in order to determine whether, one, we are doing some sort of rec center, and two, exactly what is it, what's in it. So that, I just don't see that happening by February. It's almost February as it is. So I think it's a great idea for the interim, you know, like a 5-year plan, certainly not 10 years, because we really don't know where the town center is going at this moment. We have, you know, great promise here that great things are going to be happening in the next month or two. But I don't know where the actual town square will be and what we committed to on those floors and when that will happen. So it makes sense, your proposal, for a short interim, but I'm not sure of that time frame, how to achieve that.
I just wanted to add one more comment. I guess in my mind, I don't see this as a rec center. I see it more than a health and wellness center, which is a smaller version. The rec center, to me, it seems much, much bigger with swimming pool and other stuff. So for what it is, I think it's great, but I wouldn't say that's a rec center to me.
I would agree.
Okay. Thank you.
I would agree.
Okay. Trustee Hanson?
Yeah, the February date, that stuck out to me big, because we went through this a year and a half ago with the town center, and it wasn't a good situation. So to have us make a decision in that short a time frame on something this significant, I think is going to be tough to do. I do have a couple of questions. The $350,000, that covers the operations, the annual operations? Is that?
It covers the build-out costs as a whole. It covers the management fee, it covers the leasing fee, it covers the lease of the equipment within the facility, and the extended facilities that are available to the town. And the taxes.
Okay. So Matt, in your memo, a facility about the same size, you estimated it would cost us about $280,000 a year in operating costs. So there's a $70,000 delta there, but so it sounds like we're actually amortizing the build-out costs.
Yeah, I think that's just construction costs.
Yeah.
What, the,
Oh, the 200, that's operations.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, your amortization of the $3 million would have to be on top of the 280.
Yep, okay. The one thing I know that I'm really excited about is the concussion testing and management. Is that something you do now at your current facility?
Yeah, we do a bunch of that.
I think that in the youth sports world on our end, I think that that's not very well known.
Yeah, the baseline testing has really taken off in the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's something that's huge in this area that we need more of. The limited access to the turf and basketball, so that limited amount of accessibility, that is what's going to be given to the town, so the town can manage that themselves?
Well,
Schedule
we
it?
would manage it on behalf of the town, but the space is.
We
what's
we
gonna
would
be-
program it ourselves, I
Correct.
mean. So the other time that we don't have access to, that's managed by Impact Sports?
Correct. Impact Sports would run their normal business out of there. Yeah.
So whatever teams or groups that come in and use the facility.
Correct,
they
yeah, and they're paying for that facility.
That's right, okay. And then both plans, locker rooms would always be available to?
Locker rooms and showers would be available.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks.
Trustee Cirillo?
Well, to me, the critical questions that we have to answer, that we won't answer by the end of February, I'm sure, is we have to understand the indoor survey to our satisfaction, what the town is, what we think that's asking for. We have to understand, and something we've talked about, but we have ways to go, is how we're going to fund recreational activities in general, whether we're going to propose a tax, do something beyond, irrespective of this.
Sure.
So these are things that maybe we'll decide this year, maybe not, but certainly not by the end of February. I think it does fulfill a great need for, exercise space for, I'd say, adults more than youth is what I'm hearing here. And my vision of a rec center where we'd have one would include much more with youth sports and leagues and basketball, and that would be something I'd love to see. But I don't know if it's feasible with the proximity of other things. So just so many things up in the air. I looked generally at the operation costs of this versus an investment and operation costs in the town memo, and I like this as a short-term opportunity to fulfill a need that maybe we're being asked about. But to decide that by the end of February is going to be very hard.
Yeah, if I may speak to the offerings, I think part of not over-designing the 14,000 square foot facility is that a lot of that will be available right next door, which is essentially the basketball, the turf, and the other components that's available. So we didn't want to over-engineer that.
Yeah.
I think the key of long-term, larger money investment, if the town is grappling with where they're going to fund it from, whatever, if it's a bigger investment, you're going to have to fund it from somewhere. So
Yeah.
I think from that standpoint, this was seen as a kind of a viable
It
low
is.
cost.
It could very well be,
Yeah.
just knowing that by the end of next month. So.
Trustee Dozell?
Yes, I had the same concern about the 10-year commitment. When we talked, and I heard a lot of short-term, and that's not a very short-term solution for if we have to make a 10-year commitment, which would be $3.5 million or more over that 10-year period. That's a lot of money. I also have a real need to understand how it would integrate with any future town square amenities that we've
Activities.
already committed to. I mean, we've said we want, so we have to understand how that fits together, and there's no way we can do that by February, as everyone has said. So I am also concerned about the participation rate that would be required. I'm wondering, like, when you say your Broomfield facility, what participation rate from the general public do you have there? Or is it only for your impact sports medicine that you use?
So we don't promote a ton of memberships there. It's for youth athletes in development mainly, which, speaking to your point, allows for that to occur next door. Our membership count there is very, very low because we just don't make it available from that standpoint. The facility's at capacity. It's got a full-blown physical therapy space in it. It's got some other massage therapy, rent some space in it and so forth, but it's at capacity from that standpoint. And the membership piece of it, that's, Ryland and I were talking about it, that you don't want to integrate it too much. You want them to come in and feel like, this is our town facility, this is where we're at, and then provide the options from that standpoint. I think that was key for us in trying to design a concept that we would think would be kind of a win-win from that standpoint.
So in that's another, there's a little bit of a disconnect for me because we don't even think to compare it to. What
Sure.
you've got in Broomfield is different than what we're talking about over here.
Yeah, I think the membership thing, though, what we heard from Patrick and his team, too, was that presented a lot of risk. I think you actually spoke about that last time. And because we've been in the business, for 20 years and longer, we have an idea of what we think and what we know to be true in different and various communities. At some point, you're going to have to step off the ledge. We're investing in Town Center as a business, so in that sense, I think we're backing the project as a whole. But you're absolutely right. There's no, I don't think Superior would do the same thing Louisville would do in terms of its members and so forth. But we did tour the other facilities. We kind of looked at their offerings. Some facilities that are expensive have, bikes along the running path. To me, that's not a cardiovascular facility. And its weight training has weights that can drop into the running track. To me, that's not a high-class facility. So in terms of spending from that standpoint, I think it is difficult. Patrick and I spent a couple of hours working on this. It is difficult to do that. I think our objective was to see what the interest level is. If the survey needs to be parsed out, then absolutely, I think that takes precedent from that standpoint. But I think our main thing was, given Luke's timelines, is to have some kind of idea one way or the other. I think part of the idea with the initial fee too would be to come back to the town with a complete layout, kind of in a three-dimensional map, as well as programming associated with what it would actually look like, what it would feel like, what it would be. And I think inevitably, if you consider the survey, you're going to have to make a little bit of an investment to kind of conceptualize that as a whole. I think each town is very, very different.
I understand that. What was originally conceived for, or envisioned for B, space B? I was trying to remember. I understand A.
It was a mix between a weight training facility and a physical therapy space. So the concept that we had...
But that was provided by you all.
Correct.
That wasn't us.
Correct.
That was what was originally in the FDP.
Yeah.
Was that it was going to... And I guess that was what I was trying to remember, was that we had... when the FDPs were brought forward, that space was going to be utilized for now what you're proposing that we as a town fund.
So the other component of it is we looked at what do we not need over there. So the MOB that's considered next door, which Luke referred to earlier, provides us more than adequate space. I think it's only at 55%. Or 60%, there's more space available. So for us to move the medical and have medical all housed in one facility is actually a good solution to this. And so, again, we were trying to marry real square footage with real cost with a number that was palatable with what the town had looked at before.
Oh, so you would put some of that what it was envisioned over in the
MOB,
Valley Ice
yeah, and so it would help that concept, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
So because in our current concept, the PT space and the Phase 4 space is integrated into Impact. So we would take this away and put it in the MOB right next to it. So.
Okay. Well, I appreciate coming back with some more information.
Sure.
I do think, though, that, as we said, for a short-term solution, it's a long-term commitment, and I'm not sure we're ready for that right now.
Okay. So from my perspective, I think we're in a really unique situation here. We didn't anticipate this in the early versions of the town center planning, so I think it's really unique that we've now completed the indoor survey. We haven't digested it all, but we've gotten a pretty clear idea that residents want a recreation center, and now all of a sudden we've got an opportunity to put a recreational center into motion and have it up and running potentially by the end of the year or early next year. So I think as a board we need to decide, do we want to do that or do we want to wait a couple of years? Because it will be for the town to implement anything, whether it be around the town center or elsewhere, it'll be years. So I think this option really, to me, is the only option to get anything done in this time frame. We would never be able to do anything in this time frame on our own. So I think we really have to ask ourselves the tough question: do we want this to happen, or do we not feel comfortable enough and need to push it out? From my perspective, I think this is one of those things that if we let it go, we'd look back and we'd say, wow, really wish we'd have done that, because it immediately activates our current residents into the very beginnings of town center. And I think that's what we all want, is we want the town center activated. And so I really like this opportunity. Yes, there's a lot of details to figure out. Yes, into February is probably not realistic to get it figured out, but I think we need to work and get it figured out.
I don't have a problem with working it more, you know, but we just don't know what it is, you know. I mean, we always tend to do this as a town. We get an idea and someone presents something to us and we say yes and we accept it. But you wouldn't buy a house that way without knowing what you're going to have at the end of it. And if it fits your needs, you know, and so I think we need to do a better job of understanding what the need is. And I saw the picture of all of the cardiovascular equipment. I don't know if you intended to mean that that's what it would look like. I'm not sure that's what's in my head as what the indoor space survey was asking for, a room full of cardiovascular equipment. So, you know, it might be, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's
what I would say is if there's traction, I think that to do a little bit more investment and come back and give you a more baked out idea is not that hard to do. I mean, we do it all the time. It's part of our DNA.
I think the purpose of going through all of us was to kind of see what traction there was, and what I'm hearing is at least there's enough traction to move forward, as opposed to saying
thanks, but no thanks.
Thanks.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I think we need to see more. Everybody's asking for more. So if February is not too soon for you to present something to us, if you can do that in the next 30 days.
Skiing is good at the end of February.
You know, we give you it'd be great for you to come back so we have more information to make a better decision to see if there's significant traction then after that.
I don't think, I would suggest, if I may suggest, I think you can make, you know, we'll make the investment of putting together a visual and detailed components to put back in front of the board, you know, one more time. And I think from a no-go situation, I don't want to speak for Luke or Dr. Sheen. I think there is some leeway. It doesn't have to be February. It would really help if it's the end of February, but I don't think it's an absolute drop-dead date. I think that we can look at construction schedules and we can move some stuff around and so forth, but I mean, you can't make the decision later in the summer, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not going to move much. We've kind of looked at the numbers, we've parsed it out, we've listened to the town managers, we've listened to your staff, and kind of go from there. So we think we're close from that standpoint, and if you can conceptualize it and put some meter on the scaffolding, I think it'll help. Trustee Pennington.
Trustee Careers.
Yeah, I think that if you can present us with more information in the next 30 to 60 days, I think we're certainly by summertime, before the summer, we can make a decision, yay or nay. But
okay.
I personally want to see more. And
we've all got to see more.
Yeah. So,
Trustee Pennington, hold on. Trustee Pennington.
I think we're doing you a disservice if we don't provide you more information before you get back to us. For example, 10 years is a big barrier for me because 10 years basically makes us institutional as our rec center. And it's too long a term, I think, or health and wellness, whatever you want. It's going to be institutionalized as Superior's, whatever it becomes to be. So I fully agree with what Trustee Dozal said, that 5 years perhaps is an interim solution. 3 to 5 years is an interim solution. But 10 years is a permanent solution. So we can't talk about interim solutions with a permanent time frame, right? So we've got to mull this over as a board and feed back to you to see if there's consensus. If this board agrees with me that we're much more looking for a 3 to 5 year solution.
Yeah.
Or the debate becomes, can this be our permanent solution? Okay, could this be our permanent solution? And that changes the debate.
Yeah, it does.
So what is it we're asking you to get back with us on when we
Patrick
don't even
and I have
know
asked
what
this
we're
a lot.
asking? So
I appreciate that. No, that's a great point. I mean, I think when I looked at 5 to 10, I've never looked at this outside of the scope of some sort of conversion. Because but the money that you're investing now, I think in the future, whether it's rec leagues, whether it's, we convert it to basketball courts, whether we do something else at that point in time, I don't think that it's not going to have value 10 years from now. Like, I'm extremely confident that it's going to have extended long-term value, and that by 3, 4, 5 years, the town's going to be like, this saves us money in what we want to build in the future, and it spreads it out. So
as a solution, as a
next
step, one, the numbers drive me crazy. When you're talking 20 $30 a month for an individual, $40 a month for a family, but then you're talking down at the bottom, $100 a year for a family. No, 40 times 12 is 480. So the numbers, and we have not talked as a board, is this something we intend to provide cost-free to
Yeah.
our residents? Are we going to try to float a bond issue, some sort of tax bond issue? Or are we going to do some combo where there's a membership fee and some sort of tax impact? So we've got to do some stuff. So as the next step, I'd like to see if there's room on our, like, next meeting work session or the one thereafter, where we can gather again at 5:30, have an hour and a half in front of us. You can be there and we can mull a lot
Matt's
of these
going
things
no.
over.
No.
It'd have to be during the regular meeting.
Or one.
We have dinner scheduled for the next.
Could we
4
change,
months
could we
with
just graciously
advisory
change one?
We have dinners, is that?
Who-
I think
who's our
this takes a
next one?
priority of dinner with, I'm sorry.
I can
Oh,
eat
perfect.
it.
Why don't we do it with ProStack? Why can't we have this
ProStack could be there.
conversation?
Actually, that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's,
Let's work on
Is that the
talking
next
one-
meeting?
One at a time.
Right, but the
But that's a
point is,
working- we could
before
do
we
that, that's
go
a great
back
point.
to, because what are you going to feed back to us? We're just going to have, we need clarity among us as to what we're asking for.
Yeah.
So you can come back to us with it.
I would agree. The issue of how, I haven't seen anywhere, there is no facility that we know of that doesn't have either membership or some kind of revenue or tax associated. It doesn't exist. And so that is a question that you're going to have to answer at some point, or discuss, or bat around at least. So it's a
And you need to come back to us and say 3 to 5 years could work for us if we can work out the interim solution, or are we working towards permanent solution utilizing you?
Yeah.
You know, that's a debate we
Sure.
gotta have.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
And this is not directed towards you, it's directed towards staff. With their presentation, I absolutely have to see how the financing would work. I mean, no one's talked about money. How are we going to pay annually $350,000? Where's that coming from? I have to see that. And if it's 4 scenarios, I'm perfectly fine with that.
I had one more question for you. Going back to your, what residents can expect part, facility will be branded and staffed as Town of Superior Recreational Center. The staffing would be provided by you. What kind of staffing are you talking about in numbers?
We think that an FTE of about, meaning full-time equivalent of about 4 to 5 is enough to run the daily operations. What we've used in other models that overlaps well is not all staff in a recreational environment they're not all busy at the same time. And so there's a lot of overlap in terms of running programs. So a kid that comes into you for youth basketball development has a different need than somebody that comes in, swipes a card, and goes and sits on a bike for an hour, right? Those are two different things. So I don't anticipate that we would have more than that. Especially not the hours and then the proximity of the two facilities.
Okay, Trustee Dozell.
Last couple of comments. One is that I think we can all recognize there's value to all of us, to Impact Sports, to Boulder Valley Ice, and to the town, if we have a facility that can be utilized by the residents of Superior, not just members, or people that participate in your Boulder Valley Ice and indoor sports, or just in your Impact Sports and your medical office building facility. And so let's think how we all can value this, and not just that we, as a town, have an add-on cost for this. And then the last thing I'll say is we have to keep in mind that we've already provided land for this building. So we've already invested in this significantly.
Yeah.
So, and we expected to get something back in that our residents could utilize the facilities, pay for it, and be members of it. But we have to keep that in mind as we go forward here too. We've already made an investment here. So I like the idea of taking a look at this opportunity to see how we can meet the indoor space desires of the residents. But we really have to do it smartly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is the consent agenda. We've pulled D and G. Do we want to?
Well, what I ask you to do is approve the consent with the items that remain, and then we'll come back to D and G.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion to approve? Motion by
Yeah.
trustee Sorelli.
I move to approve the consent agenda except for items
D and G.
D and G.
All right.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, second by trustee Gregoris. All those in favor of the consent, passing the consent agenda? Okay, passed unanimous. Okay, item D, consent agenda, adoption of a resolution renaming the Youth Services Committee to Youth Leadership Council.
Yep.
Trustee Hanson?
Yeah, don't necessarily have an issue with the name, but when we, about 3 years ago, we had a lengthy process of kind of configuring all of our advisory committees. And one of the things that came up is consistency in the name, in committee. And are we sure that we want to move forward with what's the new name?
Superior Youth
Youth Leadership Council. I thought we wanted to keep all the committees as committees and be consistent, because there was some concern about the Historical Commission being a commission, and that was something that was different. So is there an issue with having this be called the Youth Leadership Committee? For consistency's sake?
Let's ask the town attorney.
Legally, there's not. I do recall that discussion, though, because the advisory committee section of your code refers to committees. However, the definition we put in there of committees would still include this, but I agree, I remember the discussion at the time that the Historical Commission was going to be the only one that wasn't renamed as a committee.
Yeah, I certainly don't have, if the rest of the board feels that it's fine the way it is, but we had this discussion, and I thought we wanted to be consistent, so.
Okay, trustee Gregoris?
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Chris. The youth voted for this name, and I felt comfortable with it, and I didn't see that big of an issue to object during that time, so I'm still in favor of it, but if the majority of the board feels otherwise, I guess, I kind of feel kind of bad to go back and say, we changed the name for you, I guess. So I'm okay with it, but.
I have a comment about that.
Okay, trustee Dizon.
I think that as the youth, and you all that have youth will probably know this better than I, but as they put it on their resumes and their dossiers for going forward into college, a council has much more weight than a committee. So I think that leaving it as a council, because it's more active, and it implies more actual exhibit of initiative. And I think that, as you said, they picked that, and I think council has a much more active name for the youth.
Yeah, I
It'll
agree.
be more impactful on their resumes as they go forward.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams?
I think that if this legally falls under the correct jurisdiction, then I think we should leave the name. I don't see any problem with it. I mean, if we want to nitpick it, we could completely change it to something completely different. So I don't.
Well, I'm certainly not nitpicking.
No, I
I'm
didn't
just saying,
mean-
we had some discussion about this. and
No, you're
I
right.
could
Merit.
see, I could see a board in 3 or 4 years that goes through all the advisory committees and say, well, why is the Historical Commission a commission and this is a council and not a committee? So, again, I'm not nitpicking, I'm just saying, we had this discussion and we asked for consistency, so I'm trying to be consistent.
Okay, trustee Pennington?
Fundamentally, the name gets away entirely from our typical committees, because we have Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Trails Advisory, Open Space Advisory. And it used to be Youth Advisory Committee, which is more proactive and more along the lines of what you were describing. So it seems to me it's either got to be going back to Youth Advisory Committee, which I didn't believe the youth had problems with, because they served in an advisory capacity, which still shows a lot of initiative and whatever. Or I think we've got to stay with this one, which may or may not, in the word leadership, encompass the actual projects and everything we expect them to weigh in on and whatever. So my attitude is we've got 2 choices: Youth Advisory Committee or Superior Youth Leadership Council.
I have no problem with this. They chose it. I think we should.
And
A
you
title is
bring up a good
important to
point,
them
Rita.
and costs nothing to us.
And you bring up a good point. I think that if you have in your resume Leadership Council, I mean, that implies something very different than a committee.
Yes.
And
Advisory
these kids, to me, are the future leaders of Superior in some way. So I really like the fact that that's what they named themselves in some way. So I'm in favor of it, but if we need to vote for it, I guess we do.
I appreciate them taking the initiative to think about that and to not just say, okay, we're just, whatever you want to call us. I think it, says something that they wanted to change the name. So
It was a good debate. They had like 3 or 4 names. So this was what in the end, the consensus, this is what they voted for in the end, so it's not.
Okay.
Just for the record, the definition in your advisory committee code article is, an advisory committee is a group established by the Board of Trustees pursuant to this article, which has specific duties and responsibilities and a defined purpose as established by resolution. So it's a broad definition, and this would still be included.
Okay.
For the record, I'm perfectly fine with the way it is, but I wanted to bring it up.
No,
Yeah.
It's a good
There was a
discussion.
good
to have.
discussion.
Okay, someone have a motion?
Ely can make the motion.
Trustee Gregores.
Make a motion to adopt the name Youth Leadership Council, Superior Youth Leadership Council. I don't have that.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion, Town of Superior Resolution Number R-6, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior renaming the Youth Services Committee to the Superior Youth Leadership Council.
Okay, motion by Trustee Hansen, second by Trustee Gregores. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay, next is item G, 7G on the consent agenda, adoption of a resolution approving the charter for the West Connect Coalition. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
Yeah, I pulled this, and I think we have a few more questions that needs to be clarified by this coalition, and so I'd like to table it, but at least have the discussion, and then bring it back to the next meeting after I've had a meeting with the West Connect Coalition this Wednesday. And anybody's invited to come with me. It's at 7:30 at the Jefferson County,
AM.
what?
AM.
AM, sorry. 7:30 AM, bright and early, at the courthouse in Jefferson County. So I plan to ask two things. One, regarding the executive sessions, we need some language in the charter as to when an executive session can be used, what topics, who can attend them. I think if there's any room for any kind of ambiguity, that it should be clarified specifically by this group so that we completely understand how they're planning on using them and how we are incorporated into them. So I would like to suggest also that all members, full and affiliate members, can attend these executive sessions. There is no voting, and so I see no reason why they couldn't include the affiliate members who are non-voting members.
Sure, and either that or maybe not even have them, but that's another
Okay,
option.
but I mean,
Either one. I agree.
throwing that out just in case, and
Right.
you know it's going to come your way. And then also the notice for all the meetings. As our attorney has noticed, that there is no advance public notice of these meetings or a regular set meeting for a date and time, and that concerns me. I never know if I can make the meetings. This time it's at 7:30, other times it's been at 9. So I'm hoping that I can just discuss that with the coalition, and they will
Right, the
listen.
charter has a statement saying that meetings shall be public, so if they started.
Right,
But then.
they didn't
doesn't go any
clarify
further.
when.
Right,
Yeah.
or what kind of notice would be given. Just because it's open to the public doesn't necessarily mean anyone's going to know
Right.
about it.
So I'm guessing we're going to get pushback on this because they're going to have to rewrite the charter, amend it, and anyone who has signed it is going to have to sign it again.
Right, Golden has signed it.
Who else?
Arvada sent an email saying they were going to sign it, and I'm
And
sure
Jefferson
there's...
County
and
has
Jefferson
already.
County. So I think that we need to just prepare ourselves for the very real possibility of them saying, thank you for the nice suggestions, but we've already drafted it,
Right.
signed it, and it is what it is. So I think that's kind of our next thing, is we'll have to say, all right, are we good signing it?
Are we going to
as
sign
is?
it? Yeah.
Trustee
Oh,
Gregory.
I was just going to ask Kendra or Matt, when a trustee requests to table something on the consent agenda, does that have to be second, or is it a vote, or is it, how do we do that? We don't normally do that, but,
Well, it's,
and I
think
agree
they-
with you, by the way, that we need to table it. I just want to see how.
I think when there's a discussion, it's proper to pull it off the consent agenda, and then I would expect a motion to continue it or
Right.
table it.
Okay.
Right, I haven't made a motion.
All right.
We're still in
Just-
discussion.
Okay. No, I agree with you.
So I guess, I mean, I'd like to hear from the board as to what other issues you want me to bring to this coalition when I attend the meeting on Wednesday, because I'm starting to feel that we keep coming back with more and more questions, and it sounds like we're stalling in a way, and we either need to do it or not do it and get all the answers and
I think
be
we're
done with
behind.
it.
I think we're behind the curve already, and I think the decision point will come probably after your meeting, to where they'll say, "Look, are you here or not? This is
Right.
this is the deal." From my perspective, I think we need to be at the table. It's not an ideal charter. I agree with all the points that you're going to bring up tomorrow. Not sure we'll get any traction on that. Additional comments?
Just questions about our role as an affiliate member, if that's what we end up being, and the decisions that are made. Going back through this, looking at the committees, there's the steering committee, and it appears that the steering committee actually has the authority to make decisions on behalf of the entire group. And the steering committee is made up of members' representatives, not affiliate members' representatives, but members' representatives. So I think that we cut ourselves out of a big loop there, again, by not trying to be full members. And I think that we should really read through that again. Did I misunderstand this, or
No,
am I
you're
reading
correct.
that correctly?
You're exactly correct.
So, we can be at the table, we can be at the meetings, but we can be at the steering committee meetings, because they are all public, but the steering committee shall determine whether and how the public can provide comments to the coalition. So, I don't know, again, I'll say that after reading through this again multiple times, I don't see any reason in here why we wouldn't want to really push to be full-on members. And this has been my position since the very first discussions on this. So, I haven't been behind the curve on this. I've been pushing for us to be here. It doesn't seem to cost us anything, and I think we need to be part of that in a full way.
I'm happy to bring it up.
Well, I don't necessarily think that you need to bring that up, but I think maybe for clarity's sake, I mean, how does the steering committee operate and all that? Maybe that could be a little clearer. But I just said this just now for our sake.
Right. I mean, the way this is written, it does appear that the steering committee has a lot of authority, more than it should, based on we're not even at the table. But I don't even know for sure if we're not at the table. I mean, I've not heard anything about a steering committee other than discussing this, but they never said when we were going to appoint that steering committee and how that was going to get formed. I mean, it was never up for discussion as yet. So, I mean, I'll bring it up. But as far as full member, I don't feel comfortable bringing it up.
Well, and we talked about this at our last meeting, about full membership, and we even took a straw poll on it, and it went the affiliate way. And I hear, I mean, I've read that too, and I see that too, but I think for the bigger question of whether we can be a member or not, it really has to do with the other members. And they've already written it in that we're affiliates. And in order to change that, they would all have to go back and say, okay, we'll let you in as members. And I just don't see them doing that.
Yeah. Why do we think they wouldn't do it? Because they don't like us?
Well, because we've got legal action against the Jefferson Parkway.
I understand, but that's a separate thing. But if you look at this charter, This is really about collaborating with municipalities in this region about how we can make better roads and make transportation easier, more efficient, and working together. So again, I just say that if we go in thinking that we're going to be affiliate members, I mean, if this group as a whole only wants to be an affiliate member, then, okay, I have no further argument. But if this group does feel like we should be full members, we should never even have affiliate in our vernacular.
Okay. Has anyone changed position on affiliate versus?
If I can take
Just
30
okay.
seconds and just back up what Chris said, we've been humored along in this process. It appears we were actually surprised by the fact it went out to people to sign, because at a certain point, we thought we had won the consensus argument, right? And then it went out for people to sign on. I contend those were the people that were always intended to have the authority in this group, and we were humored in the process. And it feels wrong. I think it really sets a bad precedent. Again, I bring up JPPHA, and we've got to go into this with both eyes open and know that this may work against us in our position.
So do you suggest being a full member, or
I suggest-
absolutely not?
Well, why do they have the ability, who said this was ready to go out for signing? And how difficult is it to rock the boat and take it to 3 entities out of all these entities and ask them to re-sign it to allow an entity who is now okay with the language when we weren't okay with the language in the past? Things have changed. The language has become more amenable to the town of Superior. And if they can't respect that and respect us saying that means we are now amenable to being a full partner in this rather than affiliate, what's this group all about? They are saying one thing about consensus and collaboration, and they're obviously doing another. It feels wrong to me. So I am completely in agreement with Chris that to fall back on this issue now in the formative stages is not a good thing. That if we're going to press it, we press it now.
Okay.
And I may be in the minority.
Has anyone switched their position on whether you feel like we should be affiliate? All right, I'm not seeing any. So I just don't think we ought to go down that path, because we discussed this a whole bunch at the last meeting. And
Can I ask our attorney a question?
Sure.
So what do you see the difference legally as full member and affiliate member?
It's hard to say, because it appears that this language was drafted and then somebody got a hold of it, probably Golden, and said, okay, you're not a legal entity and you can't really take a vote. So it seems like it originally started that it was prepared to be a legal entity, and the steering committee made up of the members was really going to take most of the action. I think then it came back and said, okay, we're going to do this consensus, which makes sense. So I think some of the charter is sort of a remnant from perhaps an earlier draft, is my guess. Because if it's consensus-based, I'm not sure why you need the steering committee. Just throwing it out there. Legally, I mean, if you either have consensus or you don't, and you don't need a steering committee, and it's unclear to me who the consensus is supposed to be. Is it supposed to be only the members, or supposed to be the members plus the affiliate members? So that concerns me a bit. The fact that it's not a legal entity, though, again, it's hard to vote. It's hard to do anything. It's hard to take any action when you're not a legal entity. So when I spoke to Golden's attorney about this, it was his impression that it was not a hurry. I specifically mentioned, hey, I understand some people have already signed this, and this will require some sort of an amendment. And he said, well, the possibility is that you go back and ask them to amend it after approval. I'm not sure if we are comfortable doing that. But also, he said only a couple people have signed it, which a couple communities or entities have signed it. Like I said, when I discussed it with Littleton, they'd never even been approached yet. They'd never heard of it. So Golden's attorney's position was, this is not a hurry. I'm just throwing that out there.
Can I ask you, did they say why Golden signed it so quickly? They were the first to sign it.
I don't know the answer to that, but they signed it. I mean, my impression was that they thought that this was done last July. So they didn't see this as a hurry. They just signed it, but he said, well, I haven't even looked at this since last July. So it seems like there was a draft in the works for a while, and then someone said, okay, let's go, we're going to move forward.
I mean, that just makes no sense to me why a city council, Golden, would sign something that isn't even.
That's why, because it's not a legal document. There's no problem from them. They're just saying, we're going to be there, we're going to be first at the table, but there's no real commitment or legal consequence of signing this. They want to be there because they're impacted by anything that will be done by this group.
Correct.
So they're doing that. And if you read it again, you know, the members are the people that have this connection, whatever you want to call it, going through their town or abutting up to it. That's not us, that's not Boulder, that's not Littleton, it's not some of these other towns. So
We connect, we would be.
it does not go through our town.
We go
It does
through their
not go
town.
through our
It's
town.
We go
One at a time,
through
right?
there.
One at a
Yeah,
time.
we are not, no, it's up on 128,
residents
it's
use
as
those.
close as it gets to us, Highway 128 in
Indiana.
Indiana. That's in Indiana, not in our town.
It's
But
in our
our
borders.
residents.
Let's talk one
Yeah, so.
at a time, please.
So if you read it, though, that's what it says here. And I think that because it's not a legal entity and nobody really knows what's going on, just sign it as an affiliate. Let's move on and see what happens. The other thing is, they probably don't want us because of the fact that we've been opposition to this. And clearly, the objective here is to connect everything. So, and we've been in opposition of connecting. So why would we think that they would want us as a member when we're sitting outside of the connection and saying we don't want it to happen?
Because it's one thing, it's the Jefferson Parkway is the thing that we're at odds on.
And that
Everything
doesn't
else.
connect.
But
But
And
I'm
they're
just saying
actually-
that Golden, I would think Golden would want us to be involved, and there's a good ally there.
well, I think we've just spent a lot of
We have spent too
time
much time on this.
for something that isn't of, we need to be at the table, but we can't go back and change what some small group decided to build.
But they can change it. They can, at any point in time, say, we want to now become a legal entity and make themselves a legal entity.
Well, fine, and then we go
Let's-
back and say, now we want to be a different member. You know, we could be a different member, because they'd have to start over, and they'd have to do a new charter.
I don't know that they have to
Okay,
start
Mayor
all
Pro
over.
Tem Williams is going to go to this meeting tomorrow,
Wednesday?
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
and ask these questions. And so I think we need to table this item
Until we get that,
and get some answers.
I agree. So,
And-
does she have to make a motion, right, to?
Yeah.
Just to take, if we want to table
Yeah.
it.
You had a discussion with Golden, and what is your impression of their being part of this group?
Golden feels like that this group is the best hope that they have for reducing congestion in their town and getting solutions to their needs. And that's why they're on board. They've never felt like the previous efforts were getting them there, and this effort has satisfied them.
So it has nothing to do with the Beltway to them?
No. This is about, what the impression that I got from talking with their mayor, this is about what's inside the city limits of Golden. They are concerned with what's happening inside the city limits of Golden. They are not concerned with what is happening outside of the city limits of Golden. I mean, they probably are to some degree, but that's the key
it.
here.
Yep,
That's the key.
But isn't it the things that are happening outside of their city that's going through their city, which is the same thing that's going to happen to us, it's happening outside of our town limits that are going to be coming through our town.
That's true.
So we're in the same exact boat. We're at opposite ends of this, of the Jefferson Parkway. We're at opposite ends of all this collaboration to improve transportation.
But they're talking about improvements in their city.
That's not what
and
West
that's not-
Connect does.
Yes,
West Connect
yes.
is talking about the broad connections.
No, it's
No,
inclusive
also
of
the
what's going through
connecting-
Golden.
Right.
And that's why Golden's on board with this. Okay, let's have a
Okay.
motion.
I'd like to table a motion for a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior not approving the West Connect Corridor Coalition Charter.
So, just point of order here, we're just tabling this discussion. We're not tabling or voting against, we're not doing
No,
anything like
exactly.
that.
We're
We're tabling
tabling.
this. Yeah, yeah.
Making a motion to table.
Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams to table, and second by Trustee Gregoris. All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimous.
Please bring this for the next meeting, correct? Okay. Okay, all right. And after my meeting, I will send an email out, and you all can read a synopsis of the meeting.
Is there a way to turn off the air conditioning, but it's...
It is
going
freezing.
full blast?
Oh, it
Yep.
feels great.
Pretty good down here.
Yeah, I think it feels good too. I don't know.
We're pretty happy on this
All right, we got the hot side over there and the cool side over there. My jacket.
I am.
Do we
Okay,
need
I-
air conditioning in January? I don't know if we do.
Next. Next agenda item is item number 8, public hearing and adoption of an ordinance adopting the 2014 edition of the National Electrical Code by reference. Do I need to open public hearing? Public hearing open.
And I have proof of publication.
Proof of publication by town clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. The town has adopted the National Electric Code to govern the construction of all electrical work done within our community. The purpose of this code is to establish the minimum requirements to safeguard the public health, safety, and general welfare within the community. We currently have adopted the 2011 National Electric Code. That's what we're currently operating under. This is the second reading of the ordinance for the adoption of the 2014 National Electric Code. There's a couple of follow-up items from the board at the January 12th preliminary reading of the ordinance. It's included in your cover memo, but I'll just cover it briefly. We reached out to the State Electric Board and confirmed with them that all municipalities are required to adopt the same edition of the NEC that the state has adopted, which they adopted in, I think, June of 2014. And then if we fail to adopt this new code, the state could take over the town's electric permitting and inspection process. The adoption of the NEC would not require residents to complete retrofit of their homes. The new standard would be only applied when a resident applies for a building permit to complete construction or repair work that includes electrical work in their home within that area. So it's only the areas of structure contemplated under the permit for any electrical work. So they wouldn't have to go in, if they're remodeling a bathroom, let's say, they wouldn't have to rewire the whole house to meet this code, is what that basically says. The penalty provisions haven't changed from what we currently operate under in the 2011 edition. The judge has latitude to consider the maximum penalties or less, but it would be up to the municipal judge. And then we have not had any instance where we've had to use the penalty provisions under our current code. Staff's recommending approval of this version of the code, and that there's no changes to the town fee schedule that are being recommended as part of this adoption of the code. Ernie Kern, our chief building official, is here as well, if you were to have any additional questions or comments for him.
Okay,
Comfortable with this.
Okay.
I don't want the state to take over.
We do need to open a public hearing on this.
He did.
Oh, you already did.
Okay, before we do questions, I wanted to see if there's any public comment on this before we do board question and discussion. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to board discussion.
No discussion. I feel very comfortable voting for this, so.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable with it at all, but it doesn't appear we have a choice. If the
Well, we do
state
have a
mandates-
choice, but, you know, it's
not a good choice.
You know,
It's not a
so
good choice.
One hopes the state has properly vetted this, but when we had our dinner with Planning Commission, the point is when we have embedded in our town code policies, it's $2,650 per day violation. It doesn't sit well with me to say, oh, but we never enforce them. It's meaningless because we don't enforce it. Well, then get rid of it out of the code. But I don't think there's anything for us to do here. If the state requires it, we got to do it.
Right, and just to clarify, those are the maximum penalty provisions that are allowed. we enforce our electrical code through the permitting process, but we've never had to use the penalty
That's right.
provision to get somebody to comply with the code.
Okay.
I get it.
Yeah.
But then, don't have something so onerous in there is my point, is let's make it realistic and enforceable, et cetera. But I don't think we have a choice, so.
Okay, any additional discussion? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion for the Town of Superior ordinance number,
Close the public hearing.
oh, sorry.
Public hearing's closed.
Now I'd like to make a motion for the Town of Superior ordinance number O-1, Series 2015, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior adopting the 2014 edition of the National Electrical Code by reference.
Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams, second by Trustee Guerreros. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay, next item on the agenda is item number 9, public hearing and adoption of an ordinance approving the zoning of the former Colorado Department of Transportation property. Public hearing is open.
Thank you, Mayor.
Proof of publication.
Phyllis, you're on top of it tonight.
She always is on time.
That's a good thing.
This piece of property has been in front of the board more often than I think.
No kidding.
Most other, we just, yeah, anyways. So, this property is former CDOT right-of-way along US 36 that was acquired by the town in 2013 as part of a land swap. They needed land at the interchange, and this was a good opportunity to take this. It's property for those that, it's the underpass on US 36 near the Superior Cemetery. It was a piece of property that was just to the west of that underpass. That CDOT no longer needed, and we decided to do a land swap with. The board annexed the property and transferred the land to RC Superior in November 24, 2014. Under state statutes, we're required to zone the property within 90 days of annexation, so this is the next action that's before you. This property was included in the discussions and documents for the Superior Town Center Plan Development, and all land use decisions associated with this parcel were contemplated in the PD. However, it was not zoned at the time until it was annexed. So the PD sets forth that this area is primarily going to be used for civic space that's going to be programmed by the town. Parcel, was it 3? Parcel 3, for those that remember the 5 parcels that the board looked at. There will be a small sliver that it will be included in a residential lot as part of the Superior Town Center.
What's the acreage again?
What's the acreage?
Total acreage is about 1.7.
The Planning Commission reviewed this zoning at their January 6, 2015 meeting and are recommending unanimously that it be zoned to the PD zone. Let's see, there's no budget implications to the town for this, and Lisa Ritchie is here if you have any questions as far as the Planning Commission discussion or anything else associated with this item.
Okay, before we do questions, let's do any public comment on this item. Okay, seeing none, board questions?
Yeah,
Trustee Hanson?
just a quick question. To me, this is really a no-brainer, easy to do, but I did have a concern when I saw that it's a small portion is residential. So being that close to the cemetery, I mean, is there really the possibility that the back end of someone's
Well,
house would be built?
Let me clarify, it's just that the lot's already established, and Lisa can show you on the map, but a sliver on the north edge of the triangle piece overlaps the lot that's established within the Town Center PD.
That's correct. It's about a 1/4 acre. And this isn't an earlier document, so it's not the most recent. It's just one I had convenient. But if I were to take this pointer, the hand on the mouse, it's about this area here of that block. It's essentially, it was divided by some section lines. So it comes down here and it comes across about this, at this point here.
Okay.
So,
No, it's good to see the visual.
Yep.
Yeah.
so yeah, it's essentially,
Okay, any other questions?
Just the other comment I'd make is that it gives us back the front access to the cemetery where the gate is. You know, I mean, this gives us back that space, so, you know, we were kind of missing that for a while, but now it'll come back to us.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Public hearing's closed. Motion?
I'd like to make a motion for the Town of Superior Ordinance Number O-2, Series 2015, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving the zoning of the property commonly referred to as parcel number 34 REV-X to Superior Town Center Plan Development in case number PD-ZDP-2015-1.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams, second by Trustee Guerreros. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay, we're on to item number 10, adoption of a resolution appointing members to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. This agenda item is for, as you mentioned, the appointments of the Planning Commission, or appointments to the Planning Commission. There are currently 2 vacancies on the Planning Commission. We continue to advertise for vacancies on the committee and commissions throughout the year in all of our town media. We also host committee commission open houses each spring and fall. There's a typo here. The last one was in October, not April. We received 6 applications for the Planning Commission with 2 vacancies. And since there's more applicants than vacancies, we will have a ballot passed out by the town clerk. You'll select your 2 applicants that you'd like to see appointed to the Planning Commission. Town clerk will tally those, and if we have a clear vote as far as the 2 to be appointed, then we'll pass the resolution to make those appointments.
Have some on-hold music. Okay.
You want me to just read out the names aloud?
Why don't you,
top 2.
why don't you tally
Can
them out?
we go
and-
on to the
Yep.
work plans and have her give us the tally, sort of interim?
No, let's just finish this, because we may need to.
Yeah, we may need to
Well,
vote
she's got to
again.
tally all of them.
Just tally it up and we'll,
Do you want me reading aloud or just?
no, just tally us, or tally them out.
If anybody gets 8 votes, I want to recount.
Or we could combine 2 names again, or did that last time.
Okay, we have Tom Lyons with 1, Bob McLaren with 2, Jason Reese with 7, Jason Reese, Lisa Skumans with 2, and Anthony Stewart with 2. So we have 3 people with 2 votes.
So we have to redo that.
Runoff.
Then we just go for 1 now? Just
Vote for one of the
Okay.
3?
Yes.
Can you tell us the
Yes.
3 again, just so we?
Bob McLaren.
Yeah.
Bob McLaren, Lisa Skumans, and Anthony Stewart.
So we're just voting for 1, right?
This
That's
one,
correct.
1, yeah. Somebody
Take
look
it.
into them. Yeah, Jason, maybe, because he's, so, okay. So Anthony Stewart has 3, Lisa has 2, and Bubba Clement has 2. So it's Anthony Stewart.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that. Next item is item number 11, approval of the Historical Commission Open
Don't we have
Space.
to adopt the
Oh,
resolution?
sorry. Getting too far ahead of myself here. Okay. Motion, or...
Chris, do you have that?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion, Town of Superior Resolution Number R-9,
9?
Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving the mayor's appointment to the Planning Commission.
Okay, motion by trustee Hanson, second by trustee Guguris. All those in favor?
Well, question.
On your question, yeah, for clarification? Yeah, would you?
Which
Name
one
the-
goes to which?
Okay.
We have 2
Jason
terms.
goes to 2018?
I would,
Jason got the most votes.
got
He
the
got
most
the most
votes, so I
votes.
would say that that would be a good.
Well, maybe he wants to only do it for 1 year.
He doesn't get that choice.
I
Four-year
got a
term.
thumbs up from the audience.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, all right, I got that. Okay. And so seconded by
Trustee Guguris,
Gores.
good to vote? All those in favor? Unanimous? Okay, thank you. All right, next is adoption, or, I'm sorry, next is item number 11, approval of the Historical Commission, Open Space Advisory Committee, Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee, Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee, Planning Commission, and Youth Council work plans.
Thank you, Mayor. The board, for the last several years, has reviewed and approved the proposed annual work plans from each of the town's advisory committees and commissions at the beginning of each year. Process has been very productive and successful and provides direction and guidance to the committees and commissions. Attached is the recommended work plans from each of the committees that they have prepared for your review. I think all of the committees and commissions have put in a lot of time and thought into their work plans. And I also feel it's important that the board provides any edits, additions, or deletions to the work plan so that the committees and commissions have a clear direction on what you would like them to work on for the upcoming year. So with that, we've provided each of the work plans for your review, and we'll keep track of any additions or deletions you might have.
Okay, who'd like to start? Trustee Sorrell?
I have a question. Town manager, is anything in these work plans not covered by the current budget that you're aware of?
My initial answer was going to be not that I'm aware of. I don't believe so. There might be some programs in here that the board has yet to review that the committee would have to bring forward to you to review and approve to move forward with, but I think the funding for anything that's in the plans is in the budget.
Trustee Hanson?
On the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee work plan, we spent a lot of time on this, and the way we left it was that they were going to, from that, the big presentation they did for us, they were going to take the low-hanging fruit, and they were going to implement it into this. And unfortunately, I didn't, by the time I was able to get to this, I wasn't able to go back and look at what that low-hanging fruit is. So did we actually go through this, and can we identify the low-hanging fruit, and is that part of this? There is a couple other things in here that I just want to call out on, and a lot of these are, again, great programs, but item number 2 in the first quarter, review programs that encourage residents to implement better grass and landscaping that uses less water and develop schedule for outreach. I just want to make sure that there's specific HOA guidelines when you do your yards, when you redesign your yards. And I want to make sure that they're actually going, when they come up with their suggestions, recommendations, that they comply with the HOA guidelines too. So instead of making it a complete xeriscape yard.
Right.
Okay. And then some of the other things about, look at adding no barrel, no bin, look at pay-as-you-throw provisions, those kind of things. What does that mean when we say look at it? Is that, are they leaning towards doing something like that, or are they just going to evaluate it, or?
They would evaluate it and bring it back to the board with any of these items.
Okay.
And provide an overview to you and then get direction from the board.
Okay.
They're not making decisions.
No.
I'd like to differ, if I can throw in here. A lot of these things that you're mentioning are later in the fourth quarter, and it says implement.
Yep.
But they can't implement it without our buy-in.
Well, and I don't want the committee to head down a road that they're planning on implementing if the board says, well, no, this is not what we're looking for, or this is not what residents are looking for. So, I mean, I don't want to waste time here in any way, shape, or form.
But I guess I would think that we wouldn't get to the fourth quarter of them implementing it before, unless they've come in front of us and we've had this discussion and they've gotten direction from the board, so.
But
Then
if
we
we
don't say implement.
But if
Well,
we
you
pass.
have the word implements mentioned twice in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
One's a fall leaf
that's
collection.
confusing, that would change that word or wording it. They can't implement something unless we give approval. I guess that's my point. So.
Well, approving this work plan kind of puts that in motion. I think that's the concern, is
It's the ship and the course, as we discussed during the Planning Commission meeting.
yeah.
So I feel
It's not
we've
nothing.
got to go down bullet by bullet and say, is this a town board goal? Is this a community goal? And if it isn't, we got to pull back on it. And at least community outreach needs to be done to see whether the community has buy-in here. And so,
So are there certain work plans that we want to, I don't think we want to go through these, we're not going to go through these individually right now. So are there some that we can approve and some that we can pull off and
Correct.
work on later? Is the board good with that direction?
Well,
Exactly.
I'm certainly fine with ProStack, because I see them on a monthly basis, so I think theirs is fine. OSAC, I had no issues with theirs. The Historical Commission, no issues at all, because they've got the second grade field trips in there still, so that's good.
can we go through those three and see if there are any other comments on those three?
We certainly can, but I do want to point out that I know there's RCAC members watching this meeting, and this isn't an attack on them at all.
Right.
That they've done yeoman's work in putting this together, a lot of time, and I don't want them to think that I'm nitpicking this and we're going to totally change it up and require them to do something that they don't want to do. That's not the point here. There's some things on here that I had issues with when they presented it to us several months ago, that they kind of still seem to be here, and I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
So how do we, because I don't have any issues with the committees that you mentioned, and then we have the Youth Leadership Council, no issues with them either, so.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to know the specifics of what we have issues with in the work plan.
Can we go through the
Okay.
ones, can we start at the top?
Let's start at the top.
Yeah,
Okay, historical.
no issues.
No issues.
Okay. ProStack.
Couple.
Okay.
Recommend open space and trail priorities to Boulder County. I think what that really is, the open space trail priorities, but not open space and trail priorities. It's under the
I
second
think it's-
quarter.
Oh, yeah. It's been both. Both committees have submitted, different recommendations in the past. Yeah, I believe it's both.
Yes.
I don't think I ever recall ProStack recommending open space to Boulder County.
Well, I think the town makes the recommendations and they give us
Right.
Can
the
we,
input.
We have the current chair here. Can we get some clarification?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Good evening, Board. Brent Bickle, ProStack Chairman. In the past, ever since I've been on the committee, we would prepare a list of recommendations for open space and trail priorities to Boulder County. OSAC would prepare a list. Our lists are almost always virtually identical, except for perhaps ordering, and then town staff would put them together and submit them to the county. This is simply an item that I carried forward from our previous work plans.
Okay.
We've done it.
Thanks for the explanation.
Thank you.
From the open space perspective, they have had discussions this year wondering why ProStack is weighing in on open space. I don't think it's a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination, so whatever the pleasure of the board is there.
Okay. Any other
Um,
questions?
And then third quarter, let's see, develop options for a viewing area around the Hodgkin-Harris Reservoir. When we throw in recreational amenities, I'm just a little concerned because Boulder County, when we went through these meetings, Boulder County said under no circumstances will we do any kind of recreational amenity. We will not allow it at all. They were
Crystal clear.
Yeah, they were very crystal clear. They didn't have an objection to a viewing area. So I think we should be careful and maybe just eliminate that or make it a lot more broad so that we're not flagging them and they're coming to our door saying, absolutely not.
And if you remember, the viewing area was pretty removed.
It
too.
was
It's
ridiculous,
almost-
a little
right.
teeny little,
Right.
It's out by 88.
88th, exactly.
stool, basically.
So striking that is.
I would just strike that
I-
because, oh, go ahead.
Trustees.
I see no value in striking it. I'm not happy with that decision. I want them to know it. I would like something for our money out of that Hudson
what?
Harrison.
Like what did you?
It isn't our land, though.
I know it, but
I'm just giving you the facts.
Some remote viewing area is a big disappointment. They may say no, but I think we should keep after something more than a remote viewing area.
Then maybe it's
Trustee
just
Penny.
develop options around the Hodgkin-Harris Reservoir.
To complicate further, this is in OSAC's plan.
Yeah.
And so I do think the board needs to come to grips with whose domain is it, or is it a joint domain? Certainly, I can make the case for why an area contiguous to a reservoir is more open space oriented than.
Well, I think just like the previous issue, the previous item, though, I mean, both of them
Well,
weigh in on it. I think
and
the
I
more
think we-
eyes on it, the better.
I think we've got to have the leadership of saying on both this and the other one, or one or the other, on this particular one, is this an area that they should collaborate and do it jointly? Or is it an area where they each operate independently
Giving
and
different-
two different proposals come forth?
I think that's, from my perspective, I think they should operate independently and come back with what they come back with.
Because OSAC it couches it completely different. Discuss potential wildlife enhancement, encouragement opportunities. Raptors, perches, and nests. I'm sorry, that was the wrong. Monitor Hodgkin-Harris Reservoir regeneration and as appropriate review possible installation of bird perches,
That's different, though.
development of viewing access, and coordinate opening event with Boulder County. They have a completely different agenda on here.
So what does that mean to you?
I don't know. It tells me that
it's different.
they're looking at it in two different
Yeah.
perspectives.
I'm looking at staff time. We already know our staff time is crunched really seriously. So does staff need to be working with two committees independently, providing whatever support they need? Or on some of these things, can the committees actually work together and come up with a joint recommendation to the board? I'm not recommending it one way or the other, but we do have to recognize that both of them have this as a priority, and both of them will expect staff time.
And we're going to get presentations on completely different perspectives. And we're going to be looking at it going, well, I mean, it's going to be more difficult in determining what needs to happen there and who do we follow direction by which do we take direction?
Trustee Hanson?
Yeah, that's actually a good point that Deborah brings up, that if we let the two individual groups go in different directions and then they both come to us to present, then we've got to make a decision. Whereas if we get some kind of collaboration up front, I think that makes a lot of sense, because then they work together and solve a problem and one plan to the board.
But to Sandy's point about staff time, I mean, if you're creating this working group outside of the committees, that's staff time.
I wouldn't do it outside the committees.
Have the committees work together.
Yeah. So Wednesday nights, the third Wednesday of the month, some OSAC members can come if they can. I know it's asking a lot of their time. but
Or
this
you
is
guys
important.
can come on the second
Okay.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
At that point, it's
Okay.
got to be determined.
I think that's,
But, or
that's
it
fine.
gets down to the domain. Whose domain is
But
this?
Deborah is
topic?
right, these are different proposals, so it's apples and oranges right now.
For the same issue.
Right.
So it puts us in a conundrum that I don't really want to be in.
Yeah. I think there has to be some discussion. Maybe it's the chairs getting together and talking about, coming up with an idea or plan or something. But I do think there has to be some collaboration there, because there is going to be some overlap.
Right. I think collaboration is good.
There you go.
And
So-
we can put some wording in here that says, work collaboratively with, and they can determine the structure for working collaboratively with. If that's a subgroup of each, or whatnot, we can leave the details up to them.
Okay.
Or they can come
All right.
back to us and ask for clarification.
okay, so is there anything else other than that change, anything else on the pro stack? Trustee Pennington?
On ProStack, third
Yes.
quarter, would like some explanation on the inclusion of conduct dog park public engagement. Our survey just showed great happiness with the dog parks. ProStack has a hugely busy plan. So if you could explain, Brent, the need for dog park public engagement.
So, Brent Bickle, ProStack Chairman. As part of the Superior Town Center process, if you recall, in Parcel 3, we added a dog park amenity to the plans. So one of the things we think about, the dog park community is a very active community. One of the things we're adding to our amenities list for this year, which is just a sort of a wish list, is maybe some kind of active recreation for dogs in the dog park. Just to take a look at how if people are happy with the dog park, but where do they think they could see benefit from the dog park, and maybe some planning and ideas that could possibly lead us to look at this new space that we're going to have for a dog park as a way to complement the town's facilities in the best possible way. So it's just a matter of speaking with the people who use the dog park, getting their ideas and suggestions, maybe look for ways that we can enhance it and look for a vision towards the future.
Brent, wasn't there discussion also about investigating the possibility of dog gardens throughout the town center?
We could also, yes, talk to people about putting smaller, you call them dog gardens, or even specific dog walks or places throughout town. So there's a lot of ways we can address the dog ownership community in town and try to get ideas for how to expand our facilities.
Okay, Trustee Pennington?
Just a general comment. When we, for any committee, authorize public engagement, I would like to suggest to the board that we put forth the expectation that that public engagement plan will come back to us so we can look at it with the timeline, so we can make sure it's not overly elaborate or overly narrow, et cetera, and that we're in agreement with the general objectives of that public engagement. On some of our public engagement processes, they've gotten a little off kilter from what I, as a board member, had expected from that public engagement, and I think other trustees probably have their own little things about that. So if we can create the expectation that public engagement plan comes back and we sign off on it, then I'm good with having the dog park thing
We can
in there.
conduct the engagement any way the board wishes. I just put it on there as sort of an open forum, just to get ideas, find out what people want to do, so we could approach the board if there was any questions, especially if we're looking at Parcel 3 or new dog areas in town.
Okay.
Okay.
As long as
Good.
it meets the expectations in terms of time frame, expense, scope, et cetera, I'm cool with it.
We can perform the engagement any way the board desires.
Okay, and then number 4, under fourth quarter, initiate Superior Town Center Park Parcel 4 naming process. And then it says, and adjoining street naming process. Would you clarify? I see the scope here for the naming of Park Parcel 4. 4 is that square, right?
Yes, if the board recalls, when it went through the street naming process, as I recall, there was a street which was adjacent to the park, which was left unnamed, with the expectation that when the park was decided, there would be a naming process for the park, and then the street would be, I guess, supposedly named the same name. So I didn't know if that was going to come up this year or not, but I thought I would put it on there, just in case, depending on how the development goes.
So assuming that names are similar, like Randy's for number 3 kept saying Central Park, so that would be Central Park Drive or whatever. What I didn't understand is why you wanted to get into the Isabel and the Clara and the women streets we had going at one point.
No. We have
Okay.
no desire to do that whatsoever.
Okay.
You know, it's just the one street, I think, that is next to the park that was left, 3rd Street or 2nd Street, or I don't know what it was called, that was supposed to be theoretically named the same as the park. And of course, that would be up to the board whether they wanted to continue to do that or not.
That's all.
Okay, anything else in ProStack? Okay, thank you, Brad. All right, so we're good with ProStack, with
As
those
amended.
changes. OSAC, previously, I think we
I
had.
have one comment.
Okay. OSAC,
I think level 3 property shouldn't be named. I think it should just say open space properties. I think it shouldn't be level 3 property. We've gone down this route over and over and over, and always eliminated level 3 just because, you know, it's not great to show your hand.
Pretty well known.
turn off the TV cameras.
Okay, so the cat's out of the bag, but let's not put it in writing, you know.
It's already here.
I don't have a problem with it being right. Everybody knows that.
All right, well, that's my comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments?
Just on the fourth quarter, and it's not a big deal, but just the number 3, discuss potential wildlife enhancement. Sandy, what is that?
Pronghorn antelope?
Engage, yeah, exactly. Are we trying to attract antelope to come to the town of Superior?
Yes.
Okay.
What? Really?
There has been some interest by some of the committees in actively working to diversify species. I asked the same thing about the pronghorned antelope.
Go to Wyoming.
One, I'm not, you know, is it wise to have pronghorn antelope?
It sounds dangerous.
Maybe they'll take care of the voles. So maybe that.
Really?
I'm joking. I don't know. Trying to think of why
I
else.
think they would be plenty fine saying, engage neighboring jurisdictions to promote enlarging wildlife corridors, comma, focusing on diversification of species, period.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
let
Good.
the species come forth as they may.
Good.
Yeah, maybe we could tie it with the Eco Pass
There we
program.
I agree.
Good. Okay, anything else in OSAC?
Just a clarification, so similar to what you had in ProStacks with regard to second quarter number
Yes.
3, working collaboratively with ProStack on that one?
Right. And the point is, if either committee feels that's not appropriate, they should be able to come back and have that discussion with us. We've got ProStack coming up in a
Right.
month and OSAC thereafter, so.
Okay.
We have that discussion.
Okay, anything else in OSAC? All right, RCAC, I think that one is the one we need to.
Can we
Yes.
go to Planning Commission first?
Yes.
Well, RCAC, we need to just pull entirely, we can't go through that tonight.
Right.
We're running,
But we can go to the planning commission.
okay.
So let's go to the one on the bottom, yeah.
Okay, Planning
Almost
Commission.
done with it.
Or youth
Well,
leadership.
Youth Leadership Council, because we've done Planning Commission, we met with them for an hour,
Okay.
so
Then
we're
we're done with that one.
Okay, we're done with planning commission because we met with him for an hour and we talked about it.
Okay, so we'll make those changes on there.
Excuse me,
Well, I
sorry.
just wanted to confirm the changes, remove item 4 and 5.
Something to
Yes.
change.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you weren't here.
And the youth-
Okay, and then the Youth Leadership Council?
So, for the most part, I'm very pleased with this. First of all, the first quarter, number 2, establish a fundraising program
Yeah, yeah.
for the programs for the Superior Youth Leadership Council. I would think that the town is going to fund them anyway, but if they want to do a fundraising program for other things that the town is not going to fund, they could certainly do that.
They just thought that they might need to do fundraising, you know.
That's their mindset, because
That's their mindset, right.
Superior, all the schools do that, but they
Right.
don't need it. We're going to be funding all of what they put in here anyway.
I don't want to see their effort put in having a
Yeah.
car wash unless
Right.
it's.
Something
It's
above and
to-
beyond.
To achieve something for a Superior cancer victim or something, that kind of thing.
But not for their own.
Not to
Not for
fund
the-
their activities.
I
They
agree.
just thought they.
I agree.
They need the money.
Yeah.
Well, they don't need it. They have it.
And if they ever were to need to go out to the business side, I'd hope they'd work with the Chamber of Commerce,
Mhm.
because you get too many people going to the well, then you don't get any results long-term,
No,
so.
at least this year, yeah, we talked about that they could coordinate, with Heather. Yeah.
Okay.
So the main thing that I want to add, so what I want to add here is input, advisory capacity input from the teen's perspective on the following town projects: El Dorado K through 8 park parcel, the playground equipment, the town center indoor, outdoor civic use parks, the Superior call and ride uses, and any other projects the board asks them to comment on. Because they are an advisory board, and we did want the team perspective, and these are excellent projects that are coming around this year, and, they're not going to be fully busy, and I'm expecting some great input from them.
Were you reading those?
Oh, they will be full.
I
She's
just
adding
wrote
them.
them up.
Oh, all right.
Could we just shorten that to say, provide advisory input or provide input on town projects as requested by the
Yeah,
town
because
board?
I'd rather leave it like that for.
Yeah.
But these kids need to understand what these projects are, and I think we need to list it out, because they would like
That's
to know
what-
what they're
But
a
we
part
can, I
of.
can have that discussion.
That's
with
what
them.
our
That's-
liaison's for.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but they're pretty specific on their programs. It doesn't hurt to just say, on the following town projects and any others.
Are we prepared to say those specific ones? El Dorado
Well,
K-8,
we're
same
working on the
again.
playground equipment in ProStack. We're working on the El Dorado K through 8 park this year. The town center indoor and outdoor civic use parks will be coming forward. The call and ride will be coming forward probably next year, so,
Let's skip that one for now.
could.
Okay.
I mean,
But
I'm
you get
okay
the
either
point.
way. I don't
Fine
mind
with that.
I'm fine either way.
Okay.
I would suggest we leave it the way it is.
It doesn't have it in there now.
Right.
As far as advisory.
Yeah, and because I think this is a pretty hefty work plan.
No, they're going to be pretty busy, so.
I understand, it's the first year, and I'd say,
let's
let's let them get through this, and if they can handle this, then great, then we can throw more stuff at them next year.
I agree. They have enough on their plate.
But one of the reasons why we set up this committee was to get team perspective on what we're doing in town. That they need buy-in to what is happening in their town, not just creating programs for the town.
I agree, we've lost that objective
We've-
along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's a key component. I don't think it's any big deal. I think that these projects will come by,
I guess
very rare.
as they come by, we can present them.
That's
say
exactly
next
what we
month-
should do.
Next
Yeah.
month, we'll,
Let's
you guys
put that
let me
on
know.
there
we'll
then.
That's
bring it
the
to
thing.
agenda.
I hate to use the term, get their buy-in, because if they don't, I don't want them to be object to what we're doing. I want to at least run it by them,
Well,
and say, this is what we're
That's what we're
doing.
saying.
What are your
Provided
thoughts?
some
And I don't want their-
advice-
No, but
Sure.
it's- Okay.
We want
she used the word
Input.
advisory, provide advisory
input.
input
on the following projects, or town projects.
As
as
Or
they
we could
come.
say on
As they
town
come. I'm
projects
happy to
as
do that.
requested by the town board.
But not
That's
go to the
where I'd leave it.
specifics.
Fine.
Yeah.
And you've got those 4 examples that give them, and for example, these
Exactly.
kind of things.
This
Yeah.
could come by.
Yeah, to give
Okay.
them better.
Any-
We'd put that like
Or
under,
when it comes by, we'll bring it up.
under 7, as an ongoing objective.
Yes.
Provide advisory input on town projects
There
as
you go.
requested by the town.
Are you
board.
striking number 2, the fundraising from them?
Yep.
You're removing that from them?
I would remove the fundraising. I don't
Okay,
think they should
yes.
spend their time doing that.
I agree.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
We're
Anything
good.
else?
Lisa, did you capture that?
I've got it.
Number,
I have it.
you got it?
She's
Okay,
got,
good.
she's got I legislate.
So what feedback do we want to give back to RCAC?
I think we pull that one off of here, and we've got to work on that outside of, I don't know, maybe we circulate it amongst ourselves and provide feedback. I mean, maybe that's a way to start. But we've got an hour left tonight, and we've got definitely an hour's worth of conversation on these other 2 agenda items. So we've got to pull it out and somehow,
When's our dinner meeting with them? Probably too late, huh?
Yeah.
They
we
have a
can't wait.
meeting, second Thursday of the month, so whatever your input or feedback you want to give them, they should have before that meeting.
And
Can
I-
we put it on next meeting and go through it like we did here, but just take the time to do it?
I would suggest that we perhaps circulate it around amongst the board if that's,
Can
staff's
we,
okay doing that. And then we kind of see where individuals' concerns are. Trustee Hanson.
Is it possible, Matt, I mean, do you have notes from the meeting that we had, the presentation, where we identified the low-hanging fruit? Can
I
you,
think they,
This was their attempt at doing that.
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
okay.
This is,
So
they took the
this is the
input from-
low-hanging fruit then, you're saying?
Well,
Oh,
some of this
okay.
is just exploring and not implementing, but this
But
is
it does
where
have the
they-
word implementing, so we need to.
there is a couple of places where it's there, but
And there's one on here that we absolutely have to strike. It says
Okay, we're
local
starting-
business canvassing with Youth Leadership Council.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't want,
We're starting to go down the road of going through this.
Can
and
we
just
use your
can't do it.
strategy earlier in the meeting where you went and said, so start at one end and say, what would you delete out of this, Rita, Joe, da-da-da?
Yeah, I
And
just-
staff can highlight it?
That's going to take 20 minutes, though, to do that. And
Not if
more.
we just
It
don't
will.
discuss.
It will.
I will.
I just,
Easily.
we've got,
Okay.
these other 2 agenda items, I think are very important to
Let's
cover
do
tonight.
that outside of the meeting and then come back next meeting and do that.
Yes.
And discuss it.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so to
So we
conclude,
approve basically everything but that one,
Correct.
right?
correct.
okay, so just to,
Do
Put
we
it-
need to make a motion?
yes, we need
Well,
to
we
make
need
a
to make a
motion.
motion to approve all but, right?
All but RCACs, and then on RCACs, is it acceptable to have staff circulate a Word document version that we can individually edit or somehow edit as board to illustrate our concerns, individual concerns? Is that
I think it's
acceptable?
not individually, yes, but the discussion all needs to occur not via email. So
Okay.
I think you can all make your own edits and then come back and discuss it, as long as the discussion itself.
So it has to be in person, the edits. Okay.
All right. fair
Okay.
enough.
Okay, so someone want to make the motion?
Yep, I want to make a motion to approve the 2015 Advisory Committee and Commission work plans, all except RCAC plans,
As revised.
as
or-
revised.
Yeah.
We'll send you a red line copy around.
Thank
so
you.
can see what we changed.
Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams, second by Trustee Gregoris. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay. Item number 12, update regarding Remington Homes reimbursement agreement for Coal Creek Drive.
If you don't mind, I'll kind of lump 12 and 13 together in my, as they're connected to some degree. Remington Homes is required to improve the south side of Coal Creek Drive as part of their development plan that was approved by the town, basically west of 4th Avenue to 76th Street. Adjacent to this are the improvements to Coal Creek Drive on the north side, adjacent to the park. We have asked Remington Homes to provide us the opportunity to partner with them and their construction document so that the entire reconstruction of Coal Creek Drive from 4th to 76th is all done by the same contractors. Hoping we realize some savings in construction costs through mobilization and other things. The board approved the agreement with Remington Homes to do this on October 13th, 2014. One of the things the board asked was that because we didn't have the bid prices yet, that we bring, once we did have them, we bring it back to you so you could see what those came in at. This is similar to the sewer extension that the town is doing south of the development to the Kupner subdivision. The Kupner subdivision, which is southwest, or yeah, kind of southwest of this development, currently operates on a well system for their sewer. So this is a great opportunity for us to make that connection, extend the line so that that subdivision can be connected to our wastewater treatment system. We didn't have the bid prices for that construction as well at the time that the board approved the agreement, so you asked that we bring those prices back to you as well, which is what we're doing. Alex, do you want to update them on, well, I'll just give you the pricing. So for, sorry, for the Coal Creek Drive improvements, we were estimating a $280,000 project. The prices came in less for our portion, about $225,000 is what we got back for a not to exceed amount. So we were happy to get those costs in. For the sewer extension, we had budgeted $42,000, I believe it was. I'll just pull it up here for the sewer extension. Those prices came in slightly higher at $66,000 to complete that work. So a little bit higher on the sewer extension, about $20,000, and a good amount less for the street improvements of about $60,000 or so. Alex is here. He's got the plans as far as the street improvements, if you have questions on those.
Okay, Trustee Hanson.
Yep, so we received, well, Bob McCool was here tonight, and then we received an email earlier from Daryl, and I agree that it doesn't appear that we're going to make an attempt to straighten out Coal Creek Drive. Is that dead now, or are we going to actually try and make that as straight as possible?
Do you want me to kind of give you a background on that for the members that haven't?
We do. What's that?
Well,
I want to understand why, because I agree with Daryl, why can't we make that straight? Make it a straight shot all the way up? So
the basic reason.
Why does it actually need to be straight?
Right.
Let's let him.
There's two issues. There's been a long-standing right-of-way issue between Coal Creek Drive, east of 4th and west of 4th, and the kink's been there for a number of years. And when we did the project in 05, 06, we kind of made it worse. So we attempted to correct it with the Coal Creek Crossing development, and we added actually 22 and a half feet of right-of-way on their side so we could make the correction. So that was way back when. In the meantime, the town adopted new street standards, and the board desired to have parkway strips on all the streets in town. We had already kind of set the right-of-way for Coal Creek Crossing. So staff at that time said, well, we can either line it up exactly or include a parkway strip, a separated walkway on the south side. And so you'd have a parkway strip for trees and sod and so forth. And we didn't feel it was a big deal because it was going to be offset about 5 feet versus right now it's offset 22 and a half feet. And we felt it wasn't, we'd have a kink, but it wouldn't be noticeable. So you basically have three options. Go with what you approved in the FDP. The town and planning commission approved the FDP with the parkway strip and a little offset of 5.5 feet. we could stretch the transition area to make it less noticeable, and that's, I think, what we would recommend doing. If you wanted to make it exactly the way it is with attached walk on the south side, that would involve some engineering work, some changes in plans, and we estimate about $20,000 in cost to do that, because we have to correct their plans, and the town would tell them, we want these plans corrected, we want to resolve any issues with drainage and so forth to move forward with that. So those are your kind of three options. We felt really isn't an issue, it's going to be imperceptible with that kink. It's not going to be as noticeable as it is right now.
With which kink?
It's going to be a 5-foot offset instead of a 22.5-foot offset.
Can you do a Google Earth for us so we can get a visual on this?
Yeah, I wanted to give you, just come up, I think.
And then, Alex, while you're looking for that, the other question is, how come we can't make it without any offset?
Right, then it would be, there wouldn't be that kink anymore, right?
We're able to do that by getting rid of the detached walk and making an attached walk.
So if help me here, Daryl's comment was, why are we having detached walks? We should be having attached walks, correct?
Like the rest of the
Because,
It's already up there.
well, because that's the street standard that we adopted, and that's what they were going.
Right.
That's what I heard.
So why did we go to detached for this?
Because that was the new town standard.
And how much of original town is detached?
Well, there's only,
Very
the only
few
sidewalk in
sidewalks.
original town is on Coal Creek Drive. There's no other sidewalks in town, in original town.
So I just want to point out, this is the aerial before we did the streetscape improvements. You can see there's a little kink right at 4th, because this road there was only 30 feet of right-of-way, and some of that pavement is actually outside the right-of-way. It's actually north of the right-of-way. When we, let's see if I can figure out here. Okay, at 5th Avenue, you can see this is the right-of-way kind of in town, 60 feet of right-of-way. This is the right-of-way west of 5th. So you can see how the right-of-way issue is right here. So that's what we were trying to correct. There's only 30 feet of right-of-way, and you can see the road is actually kind of outside here. Here's the roadway, there it is. It's kind of even outside the right-of-way. So we had this right-of-way issue, and we built the road, the streetscape improvements centered in the 60 feet right-of-way in town. So that's where it came from. So I think that's good. Okay. All right, so that, we've been trying to resolve that, and in 2012, the staff solution was to put the Parkway strip in. It went through the Planning Commission, Town Board, and the Town Board has approved it. So if you want to undo that, we can go back, it'll be about $20,000 to correct that and have attached walks on the south side. The other reason why we went to detach is because we already have a walk on the north side along Founder's Parkway. It's going to be separated by about 30 feet from the new roadway, because we're moving the whole roadway south.
Can you just,
Google?
Yeah.
Google what's out there?
Matt, what is a parkway strip?
It's the landscape buffer between the street and the
Okay,
sidewalk.
okay.
So it's an opportunity to put trees, between the walk and the street, develop a canopy for the roadway. And we had a lot of discussions of that when we developed the tree standards, and the board was pretty adamant they wanted that parkway strip.
And we had this discussion with Calmonte, where you want the attached sidewalks when you've got seniors or something getting out of cars, but I think in an area like this, the detached is generally where you want to be, because you want to have the trees and you want to have, it just seems to look better.
You want the trees in between your sidewalk and...
Yes.
What I want first and foremost is consistency.
But you never had it.
Part of town detached and.
So we have, bump outs at various points where we have
Can you drill in on that?
the
so
little-
we can drill in even closer?
But shift it that way, because you can't see the, there you
Yeah,
go.
I'm trying to show you the streetscape improvements here, where we have bump outs with some planting strips here, where we have room for trees and shrubs and so forth, and we narrow the roadway. So there's the kink, okay? And here's the sidewalk. We're not going to do anything with the sidewalk, so it's going to be separated on the north side.
It'll be like a trail path, basically,
Yeah,
going through
yeah.
the park.
Right.
Not so much like a sidewalk, it's more like a path.
So we're going to take this section where we have the on-street parking and extend it all the way through here. But the only difference here, this is kind of funky because you have a walk and a walk. So we're not going to have that. We're just going to have the curb and gutter going through, and then the separated walk. And we're going to put, every now and then, we're going to put some connections between the curb and the walk, so you can get out of the car and you'll have a way to get to the new walk. And it'll be, 30 feet in some cases.
So on the south side, what's going to happen? You're going to go from attached
Do we have the,
to detached.
this one?
You're going from nothing to attached, or detached. There's nothing there,
There's
it's
nothing
Remington, it's the
on-
Remington property.
No, I meant along to the east of Remington.
Yeah.
What happens with the sidewalks on the south part? I thought they were
Yeah, there's
attached.
sidewalks.
They will be detached, yeah.
And so we're intending to change from wherever they're laid right now.
There
to-
aren't any right now on the Remington property.
I'm not talking Remington
just
property, I'm
yes,
talking what's
east of that.
existent,
Go back to that one.
contiguous to the Remington property.
Like Kupfer property, then east.
Yeah, well, that's where Kuffner's land is.
It's on
Yeah,
east of-
there's nothing there, though. There's no sidewalks there right
No.
now.
Which Keffner property?
Danny
The
Kuffner.
junkyard.
The junkyard.
Danny Kuffner, right?
This is hard to see.
Yeah, it's too hard to see. That doesn't work.
It's hard to see, but the walk.
Go
the
back
walk-
to the, I'm sorry,
This is the walk. You see the black line there?
yeah.
That's the walk, and the white is actually the area of the parkway strip. So it'll be 5 feet wide. It'll be green. There'll be trees and shrubs in that parkway strip.
This is the east side you're talking about now?
Yeah, this is
The south side.
I mean, the south side, yes.
South side of the
Yeah.
road.
South side.
West of where we currently have sidewalks.
Right here's the kink. Here's the kink. So we're kind of just taking that sidewalk. The sidewalk will be straight, because that'll line up, but the curb and gutter will.
That
be
is
straight.
actually, you're reminding me of the discussion. At some point, Lisa Skumatz was really interested in straightening out the kink. And we couldn't figure out a way to straighten out the kink in the road. But we said, well, the sidewalk can be straight.
The sidewalk's
The
gonna be straight.
sidewalk doesn't have to have the same kink.
Yeah.
The sidewalk can keep straight, but it has to
Right.
be,
And the problem is, we only have this line here, the right-of-way line is kind of fixed. So either we put an attached walk and line up the road, or we put a detached walk and the walk is lined up, but the road is a little offset.
But, so to be clear, we could pretty much eliminate the kink by having an attached sidewalk and eliminating the 5.5 foot of grass between the street
That's
and
right.
the sidewalk.
That's right.
Yep.
And that, I think, is what the residents are asking for.
And it'd be consistent with the sidewalk that goes east down. Yeah.
Right, on the other, to the other side of Forest.
And I agree, I think that's what the residents want.
so Alex, why was that not
The
possible?
resident is what I've heard.
The resident,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, what we're being asked to do, though, is undo what previous planning commission, previous board has done, and
Right.
$20,000 more to do something that's already been approved. So I'm
But-
not getting
But to
the,
be fair to us, I mean, Lisa sat in your seat, Chris, and dog this and dog this and dog this.
Yeah, but
And
that
as
too
I
was 6
recall
months
the
later.
conversation, we were told it can't happen. Now, we're told it can happen. And what am I forgetting?
It's, well, I mean,
What has
it's a
changed?
cost, it's a cost. I mean,
But we were never told that when we made that decision.
When the Remington final development plan came forward, it met the current town standards, and that's where you saw the change from attached to detached walks.
You didn't see him to keep the sidewalk straight, because I recall that conversation.
The sidewalk is straight, the road is crooked.
Yeah, but the point, at one point, they were both going to be crooked.
No.
My God, they have crooked roads in San Francisco. Why are we having a problem with
This is definitely,
Okay, so let's take a quick poll. I mean, because I really see that we've got, I think, some pretty divided opinions here. So the question at hand is, do we move this forward or do we change course? Is that
Well, the
correct?
question is, do you want to keep it with a detached sidewalk, or do you want to change it to a attached sidewalk?
Okay, so, and changing it involves 20 grand and more work. And leaving it alone involves leaving it alone. Okay,
But I just want to say, though, that it's more than one original town resident that wants to see this changed, that there's been discussion for many years about having that be straight. So it's more than just the McCools and the Kupners. I think that there's others that want to have more consistency throughout
It's
original town.
more straight than it has been, by 22 feet, right, more or less?
So,
That's
But
what
it's not
currently
perfect.
offset by.
Right, but it's not perfect.
Right, that's
Okay.
good.
And-
so money has to be spent anyway,
right, and
right?
just to remind you, we've had a lot of complaints, like up in your neighborhood with these narrow attached walks that are difficult to walk on. You have a parkway strip that kind of gives you a little more room to walk, and it's more comfortable to walk on, and that's why the town board
Yes, I mean,
insisted on that.
Sagamore is a perfect example of that. I lived there for 7 years, and you don't want that if you can avoid it.
I agree. I live in Rock Creek for 12 years, and those sidewalks are pathetic, but why are we changing course? The ship's changing course here.
Again,
And we have an enclave called Original Town that doesn't have many sidewalks. I drove through there several times a day for other reasons, but I didn't look at where the sidewalks were and weren't. So you're telling me that they're just along Coal Creek, and they're attached?
Right.
But when we get to the park,
There's certain.
one's going to
well, we have-
become trail-like.
We have bulb outs along Coal Creek
Yeah.
for traffic calming purposes, so
Right.
in that little tiny section, it's not.
And then we're going to go a little off-path, south of where we go off-path north.
Right, and then we're going to go into Coal Creek Crossing that has detached walks.
And Coal Creek has detached walks.
And they'll have detached walks.
Throughout the development?
And the
That's
the sidewalk on the north side is going to be detached as well.
Well, that's because the trail's in the
Right, yeah.
park.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, that's a different scenario, but I think really, I don't know, but I would suspect that the reason it's detached is because the Coal Creek Crossing applicant wanted it that way. So, and then now we go back to, if we change this, what will they say about the fact that we've just changed that because it's along their
Well, and
property?
it was done to be consistent with the town road standards. That was.
There's always been a discussion, though, about original town is different from the other road standards. So,
And the houses, we just heard that tonight.
Yeah.
So let's take a straw poll, if you will, of
I'm kind of torn,
attached,
because I would say that if
detached.
I was voting for original town to be consistent, I'd say we should spend the money and change it. But I also like the ribbon of road, so the ribbon of grass between the sidewalk and the street. I like to have that separation. But yet, I'm also listening to original town, which we said we were going to keep different and separate from the rest of the development. So I'm really torn. I don't know what to do here. And since I wasn't part of any of the other discussions about where we got here, I'm not sure what to do.
Okay, trustee Cirilli.
I'm not in favor of changing anything at this point. If we were not going to have Coal Creek be different, we never would have put sidewalks on it because there aren't sidewalks in original town.
Yes, there are on Coal Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
accept that,
that's what he's saying.
Well, they're the trendsetter.
And they're
Yeah.
attached,
But-
And they're attached.
not
But-
detached.
We're going, I don't see a need to change the plan.
Okay, trustee Hanson.
I would say that we make it attached sidewalks, straighten that road out as much as we can, and make it how the original town residents would like it.
I'm glad, isn't the road going to be like 90 feet wide then if you?
No, I don't.
No, we gained 5.5 feet. We're talking about 5.5 feet.
What about the space that you're taking away that would have been a tree lawn?
Can you add the
That's
space to the
5.5
north?
feet.
If we do as Chris,
That's for parking.
if we do Chris's plan, right, to where we do attached and a straight roadway, can we add that 5 feet we gain on the south to the north grassed areas? So the
Sure.
street
I mean, that's-
is
that has to come.
consistent with.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your,
Where
What's
am
your
I?
preference? Yes.
Well, I don't want the finished product to look like a mistake. It's to the residents of this community, it's looked like a big mistake. Poor city planning for 10 years or something, however long this has gone on. We don't mind, because frankly, I like curvilinear roads rather than long, straight roads. I think they're better for traffic calming, but the fact is that community has been complaining about this since I've been on this board, that this was mismeasured, that thing was put in the wrong place, and the tape was pulled wrong or something like that, and it turned out to them to be a complete fiasco. So if we've got the opportunity, which I did not hear in the first discussion of this, that we can make this street visually straight, I'm leaning towards visual straightness and a happy original town community.
Okay,
And
trustee-
if we have the attached along Coal Creek, it's consistent, and that to me doesn't create any visual disturbance with inset sidewalks within the complex
Or
itself.
differentiation between another community within the
Right.
original town community. I think that's a good point.
Okay,
Mayor
I have a
Pro
couple
Tem
questions,
Williams.
and then I'll tell you what I think. First of all, we have to finish the road on the one side, correct? On Coal Creek Crossing side. We have to finish the road in the end. Okay, so we
Yeah.
can't just leave it the
No,
way it
there's
is. It has to be done
drainage
at some
improvements
point.
that need to be made there,
Okay, so what if we just finished just the side we were supposed to finish? How much does that cost?
Well, the
That's already done together.
developer is going to,
Pay for
or
that.
is required to do
Okay.
that.
Perfect.
They're going to do it. And again,
But that-
whether we have an option,
Wait,
we have to get the cooperation of the developer. They have approved plans, and we're going to tell them we're going to ask them to
Nicely.
change their plans, okay? So, again, whether we can do this or not, I'm just saying,
Correct.
we can ask them if they're cooperative, and they have been, but there's going to be a cost. So they could say, no, we've had enough, okay?
Well,
so-
then it's done.
Right. And the other thing we could ask, can we have a detached walk? Can we move the road? Would you allow us to move the walk on their side? I mean, that could
Well,
be
you can
another-
make that
okay, wait,
case.
can I just need to clarify. How much is it going to cost us if we ask for these things?
I gave you an estimate. That's my estimate, about 20 grand.
Okay, what if we don't ask for any of this and we just let them do what is town standard? Then what does it cost?
Well, it's not
Zero.
costing.
Zero.
They're doing the south side at their dime. They've required that's part of their
Right.
20 is the
development agreement.
Okay,
delta.
what I'm getting at here is, what's the difference, what's the delta between what we are required to do, what we have to pay for, and what we don't have to pay for?
20.
What we, 20 grand, period.
Yeah.
So for
The only reason
20
we're having the
grand-
discussion is a resident brought this up, okay? The resident
Well,
brought this up.
So
And
this is
so we're giving you, if you want to
One
address.
resident brought it up today.
No.
So
But
for
it's
20
been the
grand,
Sore point.
we straighten the road and get attached or detached, I don't care which, and that's our 20 grand.
Right.
For 0, we just get what we got, right?
What's been approved.
What's been approved. Okay.
A 5-foot kink.
A 5 foot.
It's not that much, though.
No,
Okay,
it's
so
not
what's,
to
what's
me.
your,
So,
okay, so what's your opinion?
My opinion, I mean,
Or
I guess
preference?
it's only 20 grand, the hell with it, let's just fix it.
Okay, trustee Gregouris.
I'm with Rita. I'm split. I can see both sides, so I'll go with the majority, whatever you guys say.
If it was more than 20, I would not do
The
it.
middle of the road's not a good place to stand.
Yeah, I'm-
Uh,
because I
after-
can see that, I can
uh,
see what the original town folks have been asking for years.
Right.
I can see their perspective, but I also see what we've adopted, and now we're going backwards to what
But we
we
were
decided.
not told this option before.
And we've spent more than $20,000 before for doing something that was not necessarily asked for by the residents, so
Okay,
I'm
so-
okay with
I
spending
mean,
the money. I'll
but
vote to
Will
make
the
it, take the
developer
cake
do
out.
it, though? We have to ask
Well,
them.
that's-
We don't know. We don't
It's
know.
all
That's the
dependent
question.
on whether or
Yeah.
not they'll cooperate
Yeah.
with us, because it's their side.
So I'm with trustee Sorelli in not changing the course of this ship. However, counting here, we're not in the, we're not in the majority there. So I think the direction is to explore the option of completely
Changing
straighten it
the
out,
course
see if
of
the
the
developer will, see if the developer will
If he says
agree.
no, then what? Then that's it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have an approved plan.
They haven't,
So we can't force them to change the plan, but like Alex has said, they've worked well.
They worked well. I'm just saying that I can't go to them and say, change your plans at their expense. So I'm just saying, there's probably going to be a cost here.
And you think it's 20 grand?
And I think it's 20 grand, and I think they've been cooperative on both of these agreements, and they've been, they want to have a nice product, and they want to be a good neighbor, so.
Alex, but just so I can sleep tonight, because this is going to keep me up.
Okay.
Why was this not an option back when Lisa was on the board and she was dogging this? She just dogged this. Why can't it be straight? And it could never be straight for some reason. And why can't it now be straight?
I guess I researched it better and found out what the reason was, what all the dimensions were, and gave you some options. If you, trying to
Okay.
respond to.
So some things have changed. I haven't gone crazy in my
More data
recollection.
has been provided, so.
Okay. That's
So given the
fair, okay.
parameters that we just talked about, the majority here would say that we'd like to have you go back
Straight road,
and
attached
ask
sidewalk.
whether they would be willing, they, the developer, the applicant, would be willing to remove that grass
If you want to do
strip.
that, and if you give me authority, up to $20,000
Right.
to spend that much money to.
We can't give any authority.
No.
I've got the direction, so.
Keeping the width of the road the same.
Well, just go ask
Not-
a question and then
not
come back to us.
making more
It would
asphalt.
be, it would be 34 feet wide, like it is, that's the section.
Yeah, no, it's just
We
just
can't-
direction.
No,
One
it's
of
not
these
on
two?
as an action item. It was
Okay.
just for discussion.
Okay.
So there's some
I mean, I
direction
have the
there for
approved
you.
agreements. We said we would come back with you with the pricing. We have the direction, so
Okay.
I plan on just proceeding.
So have we covered 13 as well?
Yep.
Unless you
12
have
and,
questions.
12 and
Oh, we
13?
haven't covered 3.
I mean,
Matt was
Well, Matt
including
had
them.
combined them in his discussion.
Okay.
No, we didn't, okay.
I'm good with the second half of this one, which is the long promised connection
Right.
of the sewer.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So be it.
Anything else?
Will you know by our next meeting, do you think? Or can you have this discussion in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, we'll try to talk to them tomorrow.
Okay, and maybe send an email out if you have, and, okay?
Yep, we'll give you an update
And,
as soon as we know.
I mean, this is in the scope of your authority as well, the
Yeah,
price.
we'll start
Still have to
working
have a
on it.
discussion.
Yeah. If they say yes, then we'll start working on making that change.
So if they say yes, that's easy. If they say no, then.
Just make it beautiful. We don't need any more unhappiness.
Matt, what time's our meeting in the morning?
8:30. I won't be at that meeting, but Patrick. He's not
He's
here.
gone.
He's home already.
Smart guy.
That's why Patrick will be here, because he's.
Right, yeah.
All right, well, that's.
Okay, anything further? No. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Good meeting.
Well, that was an interesting meeting.
God, it was a long meeting before we ever got to the actual meeting.
Then we made up time, though.
We did, we got done pretty much on time.